ESPN and ESPN2. Your home for America's pastime.
Two teams who love to swing the bats have gathered here at Edison International Field in Anaheim to wrap up this three-game series with the hometown Angels looking to sweep the visiting Oakland A's. The new generation of swinging A's are banging out runs like few other teams in baseball. Throughout their lineup, big boppers abound. Jason Giambi, Ben Grieve, Miguel Tejada, and Matt Stairs all swing for the fences. Toss in some pretty fancy glove work as well, and the A's look like a team to beat out west. But the Halos are hopping to a brand new beat of their own, orchestrated by first-year manager Mike Scioscia, Mo Vaughn, Darren Erstad, Tim Salmon, and Troy Gloss. These silky smooth swingers with punishing power are on a breakneck home run pace. Two of the best bombers in the West flex their muscles next, right here on ESPN2. Welcome, everybody, to ESPN's continuing coverage of Major League Baseball. And tonight, a special treat, games on both ESPN and ESPN2. We are here on ESPN2 in Anaheim for the final game of this three-game series between the Oakland A's and the Anaheim Angels. The Angels have won the first two, dropping the A's a game and a half back of Seattle for first in the West. And don't look now, but here come the Angels on the outside at just 5 games out of first place. Hi, everybody. Dan Shulman and Rick Sutcliffe with you. Happy to be here in Anaheim. We've got all kinds of great hitters to take a look at here tonight. And the guy for Oakland and Jason Giambi, who's finally getting some attention. The fans love him. They might vote him to start the All-Star game at first base for the American League. And at times, he's carried this club.
Well, Dan, his power is certainly impressive, but it's his unselfish approach to hitting that's been the reason for the Oakland A's success as a team. This guy with a man on third base, nobody out, is not going to expand his strike zone. If you're not going to challenge him with a strike, he'll simply take the base on ball, let the guy behind him come up, possibly hit a 3-run homer. Reason for Oakland's success, also for me, as a former pitcher, that's a pretty good trap to fall into.
Now, the Angels may not be as patient as Giambi and the A's, but they've got some guys who can hit home runs just like the A's can. In fact, they've got 5 guys at least who could really hurt you with the long ball, and you never know who's going to get you on any given night.
Well, the trade of Jim Edmonds to St. Louis certainly helped the Cardinals, but it also helped Garrett Anderson out. He knows that center field is his job. Troy Glaus is going to be at third base for a long time, probably planning a bunch of all-stars. But the reason manager Mike Scioscia hits Mo Vaughn third is because that's the guy that's supposed to carry your ball club. And this is Mo Vaughn's ball club. He's accountable. He was accountable last year on just one leg when he hit 33 homers with 108 RBIs. He'll do even better this year.
This series has been all Anaheim so far. Yes, they have scored runs, 7 in each game, but how about the pitching? Holding Oakland to 2 runs on 6 hits in the first 3 games of this series. Will Giambi and friends break out tonight, or will Mo and the Angels sweep the series?
ESPN2 Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Gum Out. Drive your fuel system clean with a complete line of Gum Out Performance Fuel Additives.
You couldn't ask for a better night here in Anaheim to wrap up this series. Art Howe could ask for a thing or two, like a run here, a run there. He's so used to getting offense, but the first 2 games of this series and the last 2 games before Oakland got here, they have been mysteriously cold at the plate after the A's have just walloped everybody all season long. Here's a look at the lineup that Art Howe sends out on the field tonight. A couple of changes as he, in his words, just tries to generate a spark, get something going. Ryan Christensen will replace Terrence Long in center field tonight. Olmedo Saenz will replace the struggling John Jaha as the designated hitter. Jason Giambi, one of the keys to this team, one of the keys tonight. 5 of his 8 career hits, veteran right-hander Tim Belcher, are home runs. And Jason Giambi, no matter how you're measuring him, has truly become one of the best hitters around right now, living up to the guys he used to play with. McGuire, Canseco, they were the veterans when he was the youngster. Now he is one of the keys to this Oakland A's team. They're going to get a look at 38-year-old right-hander Tim Belcher, making just his 4th start of the season.
A little bit funny that Belcher on the way out patted first baseman Mo Vaughn on the back as if to say, hey, big guy, I'm going to need some help from you tonight. This is a difficult lineup for Tim Belcher to face. I talked with the pitching coach of the Angels, Bud Black, before the game. He said for Belcher to be successful, he's got to be able to throw his off-speed stuff over when he's behind an account. We'll take a look. We know Oakland's going to be patient. If he can't throw it for a strike, he's going to have trouble.
Defensively, the Anaheim Angels, Darren Erstad's actually going to be the DH tonight, so Orlando Palmeiro is in left. Garrett Anderson is now the center fielder with Jim Edmonds in St. Louis.
Yeah, he made some plays earlier this year, a lot like Jim Edmonds made here in Anaheim. Garrett Anderson just seems a lot more comfortable. You take a look at Friday. Here's a ball, looks to be hit well, out of the ballpark. Anderson back, elevates, and brings one back into the park. He's hit 22 home runs out of the stadium. He's kept several of them in the ballpark. And the best thing about his defense is that he is yet to commit an error, Dan, this year.
Right after Jim Edmonds was traded to St. Louis, Garrett Anderson got himself a multi-year contract. Had to be a load off his mind because he had been the subject of trade rumors for the last few years, along with Edmonds. But it looks like he's going to be an Angel for the foreseeable future. And both of these teams with pretty bright futures. A lot of young players on both teams, and they appear to be on the rise. Here's center fielder Ryan Christensen to get it started against Belcher. As you can see, Belcher is on the mound somewhat in the sunshine, and the plate is in the shadows, so the hitters have a bit of a different look at things to get this game started. It's 5 o'clock locally out here in Anaheim. A drive into left center field, and Christensen on the second pitch of the game hits it out.
Art Howe, last night after the ball game, uncharacteristic for Art Howe, was very upset with the effort from his ball club. He was going to shake things up a little bit. Terrence Long, their young, outstanding center fielder, was late for early batting practice yesterday, did not run out some balls. Art Howe got mad. He was part of the focus of the meeting last night. Says, I'll give the young guys some time off to think about things, and what happens? His replacement hits a home run to start the game.
Manager looks like a genius here early as the A's take an early 1-0 lead. Now Belcher to face the second baseman, Randy Velarde. Second home run, 8th RBI of the season for Ryan Christensen as the A's jump on top. First 2 games of this series, they didn't do much at all. They were shut out on 3 hits by Brian Cooper on Friday night. And then Jared Washburn last night for the Angels took a no-hitter into the 7th. Before the A's got a couple of solo homers from Signs and Stairs, but that's all they got. 1-1, poked into right field, a base hit for Velarde. And now the muscle comes up for the A's. Belcher having trouble with Christensen and Velarde. Now things figure to get tougher. Jason Giambi putting up huge numbers in the top 10 in the American League in all 3 Triple Crown categories: batting average, homers, RBIs, and look at the on-base percentage.
Well, 2 of the 3 pitches that Tim Belcher has thrown in the strike zone have been hit real hard. You throw something in the strike zone to this guy, it could end up a long ways away from where it starts.
Inside, a ball 1. This Oakland offense is built on walks and home runs. They have the lowest batting average in the American League, and there's another look at the numbers for Giambi against Belcher. 5 of his 8 career hits, home runs. The A's are patient, but when they feel you make a mistake, they'll swing from the heels and try to drive it out of the ballpark. Not a lot of guys are poking the ball the other way on this Oakland team.
You're right, Dan. They're not really a team that manufactures runs. They get a man on second, nobody out. There's really no try to get him over, get him in. They try to trade places with him by hitting another double.
And here's Belcher falling behind, 2-0. Dangerous spot against Giambi. Now 3-0. Velarde kind of bluffed to start at first and got the attention of Benji Molina.
What Belcher's trying to do with Giambi is to pound him inside. He wants to move him off home plate in this first at bat so that maybe later on in the game he can get him out with something away. But Jason Giambi just not budging.
And you see from the graphic how the patience of the A's has helped them score so many runs. Just a little low, and Belcher walks Giambi, pushing Velarde to second. Belcher doesn't have it out yet.
You know, with these shadows that we've seen, this is a huge advantage for the pitcher. The baseball starting coming out of the pitcher's hand in the sun going through the shade, into the sun, back into the shade. So you put a little rotation on it, take a little bit off. A hitter's going to have a real difficult time picking up rotation, whether it's a slider coming into a left-handed hitter, a changeup going away from that guy. But Belcher just not able to get anything going right now.
Elbow surgery for Belcher in December, and that's why he was on the DL for the first couple of months of the season. He was rehabbing. Mike Scioscia's starting to get his veterans back into the rotation. The Angels really deserve a lot of credit for being where they are, given all the pitching injuries they have had, making do at various times without the likes of Belcher, Ken Hill, Jason Dixon, Ken Bottenfield. Some young guys like Ryan Cooper, Jared Washburn, who we mentioned, have really kept this team afloat.
You know who deserves a lot of that credit is their catcher, Benji Molina. Mike Scioscia, a former terrific defensive catcher himself, in his playing days with the Dodgers, has really raved at how Molina has handled all of those different starters.
First and second, nobody out. A run in on the Christensen home run. And here's the left fielder, Ben Grieve, the third-year player with the sweet swing, is on a tear with 8 home runs in his last 17 games. Line drive, base hit into center field. Velarde getting the wave home. He'll come in to score, give Grieve his 62nd RBI, and the A's take a 2-0 lead.
Batting average of .326 for Ben Grieve in situations with runners in scoring position, as there was there. He looked for the fastball. Belcher going against the advice of his pitching coach, Bud Black. There's a fastball up and out over the plate. He sees it coming out of the sun where it starts. Grieve just figures it's going to continue to be there. No breaking ball, no changeup. Still nobody out here in the top of the first.
And a 2-0 lead, first and second. The DH, Olmedo Saenz, is up. Breaking ball misses down and away, ball 1. Saenz earning a start with his home run last night, and the continued struggles of John Jaha, who's one of the big mysteries in baseball this year. He's had some injury problems, but after having a huge year last year, he just can't get on track. Art House tried a lot of different things, moving him down in the order, pep talks. But at least for tonight, Jaha's out and Saenz is in. And this guy's no slouch. He had 11 homers and 255 at-bats last year. And he's hitting .302 with 6 homers in a part-time role this year. 1-1 from Belcher. Into left field, and that's a base hit. Giambi's getting the wave. Palmero's throw is cut on the infield, and it's 3-0 for Oakland. And listen to the crowd coming down on Belcher. This is a team that's won the last 2 nights, but they're in a bad mood early here tonight.
Well, the crowd's upset with the effort of Tim Belcher, and I think right now manager Mike Scioscia a little bit concerned with the velocity. That fastball on the outside part of the plate, a terrific location on the fastball. Look at that, that's on the black, and yet you've got a right-handed hitter that's able to pull that pitch. Well, that tells you right there that Tim Belcher just does not have any kind of velocity whatsoever. Normally, if you do any damage on that pitch, you got to take it to the other way. But Belcher not fooling the soul yet, and there's already activity in the Angel bullpen.
The A's have scored more runs this inning than they scored in the first 2 games of this series, losing 7-0 and 7-2. And we may be on the West Coast, but that's a Bronx cheer for Tim Belcher just to get a called strike. Here's right fielder Matt Stairs. He homered last night, his 13th of the season. But by his standards, not having a good year, hitting just .218. Coming into the season, a career .279 hitter. And the bullpen is busy. That's right-hander Mike Theory. On Stairs. Tim Belcher, Rick, now 38 years of age, is years past the point of being able to dominate and overpower people. You were talking about it, coming off elbow surgery. At this point in his career, he's got to be precise and he's got to make adjustments every time out there.
Yeah, this guy was a workhorse for years, particularly in the 90s. As far as innings was concerned, one of just 4 guys with 200+ innings every full year. Now, that doesn't count the 94 strike year, from 91 to 98. The only other 3 guys to do that during that period: Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, and Scott Erickson of the Baltimore Orioles.
3-2. Erickson's a guy we'll see on ESPN Tuesday at Yankee Stadium when they take on the Yankees, assuming he's still with Baltimore at that point. He could be traded between now and then. Belcher was out in front of 1-2 on Stairs. Now it's 3-2 with Ben Grieve out at second and Olmedo Signs at first. Already 3-0 for the A's.
Got to be something off speed here. Change up, slider.
Missed away and he loads the bases. And with every batter, the booing gets louder and louder.
Well, he's walked a couple of guys here this afternoon, or this evening, excuse me, and it might be because of this play right here. That's his last start when he was called for a balk. Now watch where his left foot comes down. That is too close to home plate. That is going to be called a balk. And the problem for Mike Scioscia was that his pitcher overreacted, gets thrown out of the ball game, and now not only are you in jeopardy in that particular game, but you've got to use your bullpen. That could affect the whole series. A starter getting kicked out that early in a game.
Miguel Tejada is the batter, and Belcher misses high. Tim Belcher did win his first 2 starts of the season before that last one that we showed you against Seattle. Tejada in his brief career with a 1 grand slam. Another one of the young core players on this Oakland team that they are building around. 2-0. And another guy they've signed to a long-term deal. Miguel Tejada, Ben Grieve, and Eric Chavez, who's on deck, have all been signed to 4-year contracts. And given the way they're producing, pretty reasonable contracts at that.
That's one of those things that not only works for the player, but it works for the organization as well. You pick the right kind of people. Not only can they produce, but players that aren't going to lay down on you because they have the security of that contract. That's why it works for the player, why it works for the organization. A couple years down the line, these guys are going to be underpaid.
Grieve at third. He drove in a run with a base hit. Signs did the same. He's at second. And Matt Stairs issued the walk to load the bases. 3 runs in on 4 hits and a couple of walks. Nobody out. Chopper down to third. Fair ball. Across the infield for the out. Tejada is retired. In to score comes Grieve to make it 4-0.
I'm a little bit surprised right there that Troy Glaus did not try to throw out Ben Grieve at home plate. Ben Grieve's not a fast runner. I know the ball was down the line a little bit, but there was still plenty of time to make the throw and record the force out at home. Here's a replay here. Look at Grieve. He's still standing there. All right, you caught the ball. Now simply throw the force play at home plate. I mean, sure, Tim Belcher would gladly take getting anybody out at this point in the game, but you'd like to get that lead runner.
Now the intentional walk coming to Chavez to reload the bases.
So sometimes when a young player has made as many errors as Troy Glaus had, and he's a terrific defensive third baseman, but he's got 15 errors already. The easy throw was the one he made to first base. You've got a wide open slot there. There's not a runner to be concerned with. But the right play to make was to come home there and keep the score at 3-0.
Instead, it gives up a run, leads to this intentional walk that reloads the bases. And it brings up the 9th batter of the inning, Ramon Hernandez. Belcher struggling. Mike Scioscia's got a Mike Theory up in the bullpen. How much longer can he stay with him?
Scioscia's attention's divided a little bit now. I'm sure he's thinking the same thing that we are about Troy Glaus in that play right there. Belcher's a workhorse. With a veteran guy, it's a little tougher to read as to whether he's going to be able to regroup or not. Some young pitchers will just simply quit.
Low ball 1 to the catcher, Ramon Hernandez. 251, 8 homers on the season.
We can see the velocity there, 84 miles per hour. That's about 10 miles an hour less than what we saw 2 or 3 years ago from Tim Belcher.
His age again with the surgery in the winter. Different guys come back at different paces.
Look at the baseball there. Look at the different colors. You know, black, white, black, white. I mean, it's so tough to pick up. A breaking ball just off the plate.
Continue to change in the first few innings of this game, but the A's at this point not having any trouble at all picking up what Belcher's throwing. The second pitch of the game was hit out of the ballpark by Ryan Christensen, and the A's haven't let up since. 2-1. Shot up the middle, a base hit into center field. Signs will score. Stairs will be held at third. The bases are still loaded, and it is 5-0 for Oakland.
Well, Mike Scioscia's obviously seen enough. The reason most of the time a guy hits ninth is because he usually is not a very good hitter. And when the ninth guy hits a bullet right back up the middle, that's time for the end of the night.
We'll step aside. Belcher is gone, and he's hearing it. Mike Feary coming in from the bullpen with the A's jumping out in front, 5-0 in the top half of the first. Last couple of nights here in this ballpark, the A's are completely shut down by two young pitchers in Brian Cooper and Jared Washburn. And then tonight, Tim Belcher, the real warhorse, is out on the mound. And Ryan Christensen gets it started on just the second pitch of the game. He hits it out. The A's have hit around to take a 5-0 lead. Belcher's out of the game, and right-hander Mike Feary has come on. He had a long outing in Belcher's last game when Belcher was ejected for arguing the balk. Tonight he's in early for a very different reason.
One thing you see with those numbers, there are only 5 base on balls. Probably the reason Mike Scioscia got him up. He saw the damage that the base on balls did to his starting pitcher, Tim Belcher, wanting to get somebody in there now that will throw some strikes.
Belcher walked 3, 1 intentionally. It's a very close pitch, but called high, ball 1 on Christensen, who tonight is making just his 7th start in the last 10 weeks. Terrence Long, the bright young rookie out in center field, called up. Just recently had a 17-game hitting streak snapped. We've talked about why he's out of the lineup tonight. So Christensen gets a rare opportunity to play, and he makes the most of it early.
Little attitude adjustment for the young man. A little time off to think about some things. Art Howe, not a guy that is going to get upset. I mean, he's a low-key type guy, but when that needs to be done, he gladly steps up to do it.
Swing and a miss, 1 and 2. And you think back a couple of years to when Bobby Cox took Andrew Jones out of the game because he didn't hustle after a fly ball in center, and a few years before that when Albert Bell didn't run out a ground ball, and I think very early in his career was demoted because of it. Obviously, it's the kind of thing that Art Howe hopes that Terrence Long will learn from. Sitting on the bench gives time to think about those things. Knocked down by Gloss, but it squirts through him. Everybody's safe as Stairs scores on the base hit by Christensen to make it 6-0.
Well, with 2 RBIs and 2 base hits in his first 2 at-bats, Terrence Long might get a little bit more time to think about some things that he needs to change. Ryan Christensen, Troy Glaus with a terrific job knocking this ball down, or at least 2 runs would have scored, possibly 3. Look at the first step right there. He actually dove over that ball, but still was able to get a piece of it, and just 1 run scored.
Now Randy Velarde, his second at bat of the inning, had a base hit his first time up. Chavez is at third, Hernandez at second, Christensen at first.
And you see the patience right there of Randy Velarde. One of those guys that just gets his money's worth every single at bat. Tries to wear down the pitcher. Really a great knowledge of the strike zone for Velarde.
And it's something the A's are preaching to their kids even in the minor leagues, right? Get them up here with that philosophy already instilled in them.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so obvious how it works. That average a lot of times overrated.
He fights it off and loops it into right field, a base hit. Again, everybody up a base as Chavez comes in to score, and it's 7-0.
Might be thinking right now he should have had that team meeting on Friday night before this series started, because this team has responded. I think about Art Howe as a former opponent, as a player. One of those guys that would shake your hand, great guy, friendly guy, talk about the family, and then on a double play ball that he had to break up at second base, I mean, he'd turn you upside down. Well, he had to turn himself around a little bit last night, get a little out of normal character to get his team back on track, and they respond.
Jason Giambi's up for the second time. Walked and scored his first time up. He probably really got the attention of all his players because he's not a yeller and a screamer, and he doesn't do it all the time, that when he finally tore into them, I'm sure it was a pretty quiet room.
You know, and he was the only one talking. And it only lasted about 10 minutes. Short, sweet, to the point. And I would imagine this team will be fine attitude-wise for a while now.
0-1 on Jason Giambi as he fouls it off. Tim Belcher, his second consecutive short start, last time because he was thrown out arguing the balk call, tonight because he just couldn't get anybody out. Shortest start of his long major league career.
Well, they were so happy to get him back too. What an asset he could be to this young ball club if he were the same Tim Belcher that they knew when they acquired him 2 years ago. But just an inning and 2/3 since June 22nd.
Ryan Christensen getting it started with a home run. He's out at second right now. Ramon Hernandez is at third. Randy Velarde at first. Giambi staying alive at 0-2. A .450 hitter in the month of June and a .340 hitter on the season. Mike Fury now in the game for the Angels. 0-2 pitch to Giambi. Up into shallow left center. Palmeiro makes the catch. Nobody's going to advance on that. 2 down.
Pretty good pitch right here. Able to get in on Jason Giambi. That's a location that Tim Belcher wanted with his fastball, but Belcher just not throwing hard enough tonight or being able to locate that fastball to get the little pop-up that they're able to get there out of Giambi.
2 outs in the inning, and Fury to face Ben Grieve, who had an RBI single his first time up. In the 4-game losing streak that the Oakland A's brought into this game tonight, they had scored a total of 6 runs. They've already outdone themselves in the first inning here tonight. This is the way they were hitting the ball in a recent 9-game winning streak when Art Howe's club scored 95 runs in those 9 games. They just simply pummeled people, and it helped them rise all the way to the top of the American League West. Hudson last through about 35 minutes ago.
Yeah. He's glad to get all those runs, but it's been a long time since he's thrown a baseball.
A couple of times this year in the middle of games you've seen starting pitchers go down to the bullpens if they're a little bit closer to the dugout and actually resume throwing a little bit while their team is hitting it. It's a long inning.
You know, too, with a lot of the new stadiums, you're able to go just behind the dugout. There's normally a mound in there you can do some things with. But that's not the case here at Edison.
2-2 on Grieve as the shadows continue to change, and now the mound is in shadows as well.
And that's the bullpen right out there in left center field that Tim Hudson left a long time ago. You know, home plate umpire knows that as well, and he'll give him more pitches to get it ready.
Swing and a miss by Grieve, and the inning finally is over. 13 batters and 7 runs later, the Angels finally get a chance to come up and hit. Athletics hit for almost half an hour in the top of the first inning. 7 runs on 7 hits, including the Ryan Christensen home run. And finally, Tim Hudson gets a chance to go out there. And once he does, he's got a 7-run lead. And this is the Anaheim lineup he's going to face. Darren Erstad gets a partial night off. He'll DH tonight. Palmeiro in left. The Angels are no slouches offensively themselves. Second in the American League to the Toronto Blue Jays in home runs. And Mo Vaughn and Garrett Anderson and Troy Glaus already each have better than 20 home runs on the season. So if you had to pick a team capable of coming back, well, maybe this would be one of the teams you would look at. But against Tim Hudson, it's not going to be easy. He is truly one of the best right-handers in the American League.
Well, he proved that last year when he beat Pedro Martinez and Randy Johnson, the 2 Cy Young Award winners last year in baseball. This 24-year-old right-hander going to be 25 on July 15th, already establishing himself as the #1 pitcher for the Oakland A's. A lot of people think he's heading in the direction as being one of the #1 pitchers in all of baseball.
Now, defensively for the Oakland A's, so many young players, and a guy in shortstop, Miguel Tejada. He'll make some errors, but at times will make plays that'll just take your breath away.
Yeah, 13 errors on the year might seem a little bit high, but this guy gets to a lot of balls that most shortstops don't get to, and because of his tremendously strong throwing arm, tries to make plays. From time to time, the ball will get away from him, but Art Howe just loves the effort he gets out of his shortstop.
Darren Erstad will lead it off here in the bottom of the first for the Angels. Erstad's another guy who is truly having a phenomenal offensive season. The batting average remarkable. And because he's played every day and because he's been leading off every day, he's got a remarkable number of hits, and he'll add to it there with his 129th hit on the season. And if Darren Erstad continues at this pace in the second half of the season, he will break George Sizzler's all-time major league record for most hits in a season.
Well, all the Anaheim Angels can do right now is just try to peck away. Put up a couple here in the bottom of the first, maybe 2 more in the third, couple more in the fourth, and hopefully get themselves back in the ball game. I think that's where a big advantage to have a former player like Mike Scioscia, former player as a hitting instructor for the Angels, and Mickey Hatcher. They've been in games like this, and they know, you know what, you can come back and win ball games.
Down low, ball 1 to the left fielder, Orlando Palmeiro. Quick player with a good glove who can play anywhere in the outfield. No pop, but hits for a good average year after year in a part-time role. Giambi will hold Erstad at first base as Palmeiro slaps it to Giambi. The force on Erstad, and that's all.
So many things to like about Darren Erstad. He's a designated hitter tonight, hopefully to give his legs some time off. But he sees what happens. He sees Giambi get it. Now look at the effort right here. Look at the effort going after that shortstop. You're not going to complete this double play. And Miguel Tejada says you're right. I'll just hold the baseball.
Now Big Mo, first baseman Mo Vaughn. Healthier than last year and more productive than last year, although as Rick mentioned earlier, for a guy playing on a bad ankle all season long, he still put up some pretty good numbers in 1999. Takes a strike. 21 homers, 62 RBIs at the midway point of the season. And a familiar shift with 3 infielders on the right side of the diamond, and even Chavez, even if he were a shortstop, he'd be playing him to pull a little bit. The left side of the diamond is completely open.
That's where these advanced scouting reports have kind of changed the game of baseball. They see that most of the time when Mo Vaughn hits the ball on the ground, he's going to pull the baseball. But they play him straight away in the outfield because he has power to all fields.
Sent him with a check on Palmeiro. As a hitter, especially a power hitter, and they're the guys who draw these kinds of shifts, you always wonder if they wrestle within, should I try to slug it through the shift or should I give in and just try to tap one into left field for a single? That's a lot of space. I mean, look at that gaping hole on the left side.
It'd be so easy to just play pepper with Ben Grieve out there, wouldn't it?
He slices it down into the left field corner. That's a fair ball. He did play pepper with Ben Grieve, and Mo Vaughn's got a double.
Mo Vaughn is really the only guy that has had any success in the limited number of at-bats that Anaheim has seen. Tim Hudson, 2 for 3. He's got a home run coming into that at-bat. Now he's got a double to go along with it. And I don't imagine Art Howe will change his defensive alignment next time. That ball was hit in the air. That's why you play your outfield straight up.
Second and third with 1 out as the Angels try to put a dent in this 7-0 deficit here in the first inning. Cleanup hitter Tim Salmon is the batter. There for a strike. Salmon with some power as always. 17 home runs on the season as the Angels try to become the first team in Major League history to have 4 players reach 20 homers by the All-Star break. Loss is there. Anderson is there. Vaughn is there. And Salmon's got 17. And Erstad has 16. So theoretically, I guess if those 2 guys got hot, they might even have 5 guys with 20 homers by the All-Star break. Hudson out in front, 0-2 on Salmon. On the appeal, no swing.
So tough to pick up the rotation, as we mentioned early, on anything off speed that comes out of your hand looking like a strike, and then the movement takes it down and out of the zone. All 3 pitches have been the changeup from Tim Hudson, and Salmon able to just hold up there with the count 0-2.
Tim Belcher, Tim Hudson had to leave his last start earlier than he had hoped, but for a very different reason. He split the fingernail on the middle finger of his pitching hand, his right hand. Still lasted long enough to get the win, and Tim Hudson comes into this game on an 8-game winning streak. He's 8-0 in his last 12 starts.
Hasn't lost since April 20. That's been a while. Last time I checked my calendar.
9-2 this year. He was 11-2 last year as a rookie. And he's one guy that the Oakland A's are pushing for all-star consideration. And they're pushing a number of guys. 1-2. Down low. Giambi, as we mentioned, is leading the voting at first base, and it's nice to see guys like Giambi, Jermaine Dye, and Kansas City, guys from smaller towns, getting a lot of attention in the balloting.
Hard to believe Jason Giambi nor Carlos Delgado of the Toronto Blue Jays have ever played in an all-star game. You look at the numbers that they've put up during their careers.
2-2 the count on Tim Salmon. Inside.
The thing that tells me about those 2 guys not having been to the Summer Classic is the fact that Major League Baseball just needs to expand that roster. And there's no reason you can't add 3, 4, maybe even 5 guys to each team so that guys like Jason get covered. What about Eric Karros? Huh? 100 RBIs every year.
Never been.
And doesn't have a chance the way things are right now.
Crowd getting into it a little bit now. 3-2 on Salmon, and Hudson walks him, and that'll load the bases. Now so Hudson dealing with a 7-run lead, and also with that fingernail. He tells us what kind of concern it gives him.
Pretty much what it is it feels like when you clip your fingernails too short, and you know, you get it really short, and just the pressure from the baseball just up against your fingernail, just it's pretty irritating, kind of sore, but you know, as every day it gets a little better and better, and you know, it's feeling pretty good right now.
It's not going very well. It's the bottom of the first inning, especially after he was staked to a 7-0 lead. He's given up a couple of hits. He's walked the batter, and now he gets an early visit.
Well, I think that might be part of the reason the pitching coach is out there, not only to check with him, but to check on his finger as well. The problem will be when he releases that fastball. It's on this finger right here. It's the very tip of it where the nail is cracked and the blister has been created. When he releases his fastball, the last thing to come off is that fingernail. And to create that rotation, you know, sometimes is going to be painful. Also, when he throws his split finger fastball, which he may just eliminate tonight, it comes off that very same finger as well. So if there's some blood, if there's some pain involved, they may have to get him out there sooner than they planned.
Garrett Anderson up there pretty anxious and swings over the top of it 0-1.
The good thing about Hudson, I mean, there's so many of them, that he has 2 changeups. He may not even throw the split finger fastball tonight. Art Howe was telling me he can go to his version of the circle change and use it just as effective. Won't have as much velocity, but still an off-speed pitch with some downward movement.
Anderson rips it into the seats. 0-2 the count on Anderson. 1 out in the inning, and the bases are loaded for the Angels. Orlando Palmeiro reached on a fielder's choice, moved around to third on Mo Vaughn's double. Then the walk to Tim Salmon to load him up. And a dangerous hitter in Anderson facing Tim Hudson. Art Howe's not quite as comfortable as he was about 15 minutes ago.
Well, I think he's a little disappointed that Hudson would have pitched around Tim Salmon like he did. A lot of off-speed stuff, even with the count 3-2. You think he'd throw a strike, maybe even a fastball in that situation, try to get an out. So what if he hits a sacrifice fly? You know, I mean, it's 7-1.
Yep.
You still got a 6-run lead.
And as you say, only Hudson and Howe know right now how much of it all that nail is bothering him. Reporters asked Howe about it during the week, and nobody wanted to give anything away, really, because Art Howe didn't want the Angels to get any kind of an advantage and know how much it was bothering Hudson.
Well, Hudson's one of those kids that he's not going to say that there's any problem. I mean, he wants to pitch. He was mad when he had to come out of his last start. It becomes almost one of those out-of-body experiences. He doesn't even know it existed.
The 1-2 to Anderson.
But the problem for Hudson is the fact that if it does start to bleed, or if there's some drainage that comes out of that middle finger there, if it's coming out, you can see right there. The problem with it, if it starts to, you know, drain a little bit, then all of a sudden your grip on the baseball becomes affected, and then you've got some major problems. And that thing gets any worse, they can forget about him pitching in the All-Star game, and it's something like that could put him on the disabled list.
Again, the 1-2 to Anderson. Pulls it down to first. Giambi with a nice play for 1, and back to first, not in time. The fielder's choice and an RBI for Anderson as Palmeiro scores to make it 7-1.
Well, there was a knock on Jason Giambi when he first started playing first base. 14 errors his first year, just 7 his second, playing much better this year. Look at him, easy play, go to first, but he says, no, I can get a double play. There's the throw, Tejada with the return, but Hudson falls down. Look at him right there. He needed to turn his body into that of a first baseman. He needed to be extended. If he reaches out to get the throw from Tejada, he might have been able to complete the double play. But he was late getting to first. He stumbled there. He did not get extended, and because of it, the inning is extended.
And the Angels are on the board, trailing 7-1, and because of it, third baseman Troy Gloss comes up. The club's leading home run hitter with 23, but a guy who the last 5 days is ice cold. He hurt his back about a week ago and missed a couple of games, and since then has gone 1 for 18 with 12 strikeouts. Gloss and the Angels continue to say it's got nothing to do with the back. He's just going through a bit of a rut. And you look at the numbers he's put up on the season, they're still very impressive. Mo Vaughn at third base and Garrett Anderson at first after picking up the RBI on the fielder's choice. Hudson laboring, but has the comfort of a 6-run lead early. 2-1. Very young and very talented, and a ton of improvement from one year to the next.
Well, he might have been rushed a little bit. Most people think he should have spent the first half of the season in AAA. But because of his defense, he was at the big league level.
Rounds it out to second. And for Velarde to end the inning. So the Angels make a little noise. A run on 2 hits, leave a couple on. Oakland by 6-1 here in Anaheim. To ESPN2's coverage of Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Gum Out. We're here in Anaheim, where this guy's got a 6-run lead, but you wouldn't know it by the way he reacted coming off the field.
Well, he's quite a competitor. He's mad at himself. He knows that he had Tim Salmon 0-2. He ended up walking him, extended the inning, created a lot more pitches during that first inning than he should have had. But he's also got to realize he's just 24 years of age. You can make a mistake like that once in a while when you've got the talent of a Tim Hudson to get out of it with just 1 run being scored.
DH Olmedo Signs leads off the second inning for Oakland. The A's sent 13 batters to the plate in the first and scored 7 times. Signs had an RBI single. He'll be followed by Matt Stairs and then Miguel Tejada. Right-hander Mike Feary replacing Tim Belcher after just a third of an inning. Belcher giving up 7 runs. Two and one on Signs, who is a third baseman when he plays out on the field. The A's do have some versatility, and Art Howe will make some changes every now and again, try to ride the hot hand. In the air to right field, glasses down for Salmon as he'll make the catch out in the sunshine.
That's a great thing about baseball. I spent half the afternoon, well, a couple hours anyway, doing research, phone calls on Tim Belcher, and
how's your Mike Feary?
now we got to turn the page. We know that Mike Feary's 30 years of age. He was born in Long Beach, lives in Huntington Beach, California, prefers starting. A starting pitcher throughout his minor league career, sinker slider type guy. We've seen him get that slider over here in the early going, something that starting pitcher Tim Belcher was just not able to do.
Matt Stairs is the batter, and Feary jumps out in front 0-2. Stairs walked and scored in the first inning. Trying to get that average up, just .218 on the season. Amazing how many runs the A's have scored when Stairs isn't having the kind of year he had last year, and John Jaha's not having anywhere close to the kind of year that he had last year.
That's got to be a concern for Art Howe too, with Jaha not producing. They've got a stretch of games where they come up against Texas and Arizona. They're going to see a lot of left-handed pitching. As a team, they're 8-11 right now against left-handed starters. And Jaha was supposed to be the guy that was the equalizer, but he's just not been able to get it going.
Had a tremendous year last year, in 35 home runs. He's battled injury, shoulder problems, chronic foot and knee problems, and just can't get on track this year. Stairs pops it up back of the plate, and the play for Benji Molina for the second out.
Feary going to get some weak swings out of people, as this one here is from Matt Stairs right there. Fooled completely out in front. Another off-speed pitch. We talked about the shadows. It's tough to pick that up. And it was set up by the sequence. Feary throwing the off-speed pitch for a strike, then the high fastball for the second strike. Now you get the hitter in a protective mode, and you get a swing like that.
Miguel Tejada with a swing and a miss. Feary has settled things down here in the second inning. Tejada grounded out, drove in a run in the first.
Well, that fastball there, just 84 miles an hour. But he's proven that he can get the breaking ball over. So Tejada trying to stay back, just simply couldn't pull the trigger in time.
Stairs a little frustrated with his at-bat.
How about Miguel Tejada, though? All the ability in the world, and yet to be a shortstop in the American League right now, maybe the best player we know that'll never play in an all-star game.
You talked about Giambi and Delgado at first base, guys who have had to give up all-star spots or have been beaten out for all-star spots by the likes of Mo Vaughn and Frank Thomas and some others. But this guy, as you say, overshadowed a little bit by those 3 great shortstops, but he'll make some plays that are just amazing. I mean, that play, all 3 of those guys deserve a lot of credit for that play.
Absolutely. Could have been an error on either one of the 2 guys up the middle. And look at the enthusiasm there by Tejada. I mean, that's one of those throws we talked about. He's got 13 errors, and some of them coming on plays like that where a lot of guys we know would simply protect themselves and not even attempt it. And you know the end of that play, too. Jason Giambi being able to pick that ball out of the dirt like that. His defense has improved every year. and not by accident, by design. As usual, a lot of hard work.
1-2 on Tejada. One of the nicest things about these A's, Miguel Tejada is 24. Ben Grieve, 24. Terrence Long, 24. Tim Hudson, 24. Mark Mulder's only 22. Eric Chavez is only 22. These guys are going to get better. Slowed down by Theory, and coming across the bag is Benji Gill to make the play, and retire Tejada and the A's onto the bottom of the second in Anaheim. Oakland 7 and Anaheim 1.
ESPN2 Sunday Night Baseball is brought to you by Nike and by Michelin, because so much is riding on your tires.
Bottom of the second inning, and if the Angels are to sweep the A's, they've got some work to do. It is 7-1 Oakland. The bottom of the second inning. Tim Belcher chased after a third of an inning, and Tim Hudson, the Oakland starter, really struggled in the bottom of the first. Didn't throw a lot of strikes, didn't throw a lot of fastballs, gave up a couple of hits, walked a batter, gave up a run. As the bottom third of the order comes up for the Angels here in the second, beginning with catcher Benji Molina. Molina's homered in each of the first 2 games of this series to give him 8 on the season. Just 2 away from the best home run output he's ever had in a full season at any level of professional baseball. There's a fly ball toward the right field corner. Room out there for Matt Stairs. We've spent a lot of time talking about some of the young players that the Oakland A's are so excited about. The Angels have their share as well. Molina's an example. The guy coming up now, Adam Kennedy, is an example, picked up from St. Louis in the Jim Edmonds deal. And this guy's on the right side of 30. Darren Erstad is just heading into his prime. Kennedy's a young player. The Angels have a lot going for them right now, too.
They certainly do. Mike Scioscia last year was a manager in AAA with the Albuquerque Dukes. Los Angeles Dodgers AAA team. Got a chance to see Adam Kennedy play all last year. Knew what he brought to the table defensively. Thinks that offensively, as he progresses, matures, and learns the strike zone, he'll become a weapon offensively as well. But part of the reason the Angels made that deal, Mike Scioscia knew what he was getting with Adam Kennedy.
The Angels had a glut in the outfield, as everybody's known for a number of years, with Edmonds and Anderson and Salmon and Erstad. And Mo Vaughn came over last year at first. Sometimes one of the outfielders would play there. Todd Green was doing some DHing. They just had a lot of guys. They had too many people for too few positions. And they didn't have enough starting pitching, and they didn't have a second baseman. Mo Vaughn now can play first every day. 3 outfielders for 3 spots. The Angels auditioned 7 different guys for the second base job in spring training and eventually traded for Adam Kennedy and gave him the job. Added Kent Bottenfield to the rotation, and Bottenfield hasn't been able to duplicate the kind of success that he had last year. As you see, Kennedy fooled badly by the Hudson changeup. And there's no disputing what St. Louis got out of the deal. Jim Edmonds is having a career year.
I think the biggest change I've seen in the Angels is not only their attitude, but their clubhouse. There's another one of those change-ups, and it's hard to tell. That's probably the splitter there, so Hudson's finger looks to be okay.
2 outs in the inning, 1 a week from tonight. What a treat we've got for you as New York takes on New York. Jeter and Bernie and the Yankees travel to Shea to take on Mike Piazza and the Mets. A week from tonight, 8 Eastern on ESPN. Mike Piazza, although the Mets lost today to the Braves, hit a home run, and that means for the 15th consecutive game, he has driven in at least 1 run, 2 shy of the major league record.
That is just so amazing that a guy could do something like that. Piazza is going to be a guy that you pitch around from the very beginning of the ball game. I mean, you don't even have to throw him a strike. And yet he's finding pitches to not only produce with, drive in runs, and do it on a daily basis. That's amazing. I mean, I see a guy with a streak like that. The first thing as a pitcher I think is, okay, I know he wants to swing the bat, so don't give him anything to swing the bat at. You know, you can really embarrass a guy all day long in that situation.
Benji Gill takes a strike, 1-1. The Mets were beaten 10-2 by Atlanta today, so the Braves and Mets split that 4-game series. Yankees, meanwhile, look like they're starting to turn themselves around. They beat Tampa Bay 5-2, and they've moved within a game of Toronto for first in the East. Gill with a ground ball to third, and Chavez, nice play as he spins to get him. And the Angels go in order in the bottom of the second. Coming up in the third, among others, Ryan Christensen, who's already homered, singled, and driven in 2. The A's with a 7-1 lead on the Angels. Tim Hudson looking on. A much better second inning than first inning for the young right-hander. Mike Ferry to face Eric Chavez here to begin the third. Chavez was intentionally walked and came around to score back in the 7-run first. And another guy getting better and better. Last year hit .247. He's up to .282 this year with more power. He's got 12 home runs already. Had a foot injury last year that slowed him down, but the former first-round pick back in 1996 is starting to live up to all of his expectations. A lot of sunshine out there in right field, but Tim Salmon hangs with it, 1 down.
You know, Dan, they've got so many statistics. I wish they could keep a statistic on when a pitching coach, as Rick Peterson is right there, talking with Tim Hudson about different arm angles, what to do specifically on a certain pitch. But those statistics, they got statistics for everything nowadays. How about one on when a pitching coach goes to the mound and what happens to that very next hitter?
So when the pitching coach can go to arbitration, he can say, hey.
Yeah. I mean, you know, they hit 200 every time I came out to the mound. Well, since Rick Peterson went to the mound in the bottom of the first inning, his young starting pitchers retired all 5 guys that he's faced from that point on.
Ramon Hernandez hit an RBI single his first time up, but he's quickly in an 0-2 hole here. Mike Ferry came into the game in the first inning and gave up RBI singles to the first 2 hitters he faced. Ryan Christensen banged one off the glove of Troy Gloss at third for an infield hit. And then Randy Velarde really just fought one off and looped it into right field for an RBI single. But since then, Ferry has now retired 6 in a row. The guy has pitched a little bit for the Mets as Velarde starts to get ready, hopeful of an at-bat this inning. Ferry in the Mets organization, pitched a year in Japan, came back to the Mets organization, and now with the Angels. With expansion and 12-man pitching staffs instead of 9 or 10 a generation ago, a whole lot more jobs in Major League Baseball for pitchers than there used to be. He's jammed and he rolls it out to short, and Gill will get Hernandez for the second out. And that'll bring up Ryan Christensen. What a night he has had. Already 2 for 2. And on the second pitch of the night, hit a home run, his second of the season. And Art Howe liked what he saw.
Do it. Go, ball. Go. Go, ball. Get out of here. Way to swing it, Ryan. Hey, swing the bat, baby.
How about the manager's statistic for how well the offense does after the air them out meeting the night before? You've opened a whole new world up here statistically.
It was pretty fun being down in their clubhouse and having all the guys come up and give their version of what manager Art Howe had to say. He got the point across. No question about that. Manager with the Houston Astros. You know, it was last year that his job was being talked about. A couple of his players, Jason Giambi and Matt Stairs, went up to the front office to say, hey, it's not his fault, it's our fault. Sure enough, patience with the manager, some young guys starting to develop and mature, and things are good in Oakland and look to be good for a long time to come.
1-2 out of Christensen. And on the outside corner for strike 3 call. The A's are gone in order. Mo Vaughn to do up in the bottom of the third with the Angels trailing 7-1. Edison International Field here in Anaheim. It's the A7 and the Angels won. Bottom of the third inning, and the top of the order coming up for the Angels. Beginning with a Darren Erstad, who did in the first inning what he's done so many times this year. Base hit in left field, 129 hits. Look at the lead he's got on Mike Sweeney. And Erstad, as we mentioned in the first inning, is on pace to break George Sisler's 80-year-old Major League record for most hits in a season. 1920 St. Louis Browns. Sisler with 257 hits. This is the 81st game of the season for Erstad. So whatever he winds up with at the end of tonight, double it, and that's his pace for the season. And it's a remarkable pace. One and one.
Everybody's talking about grips right now. I can remember my first big league pitching coach, Red Adams, with the Dodgers. When a guy like Tim Hudson was on the mound that was having a lot of success, he'd always take all the young pitchers aside and say, hey, you know, he's doing something right. You know, let's pay attention. Let's try to see if there's something he's doing we can't pick up and improve ourselves on. Possibly what's happening down there on the Angel bench.
Now, even when you're 33, 34 years old, are you still experimenting with grips at that point in your career?
No question about it. Probably more than ever, because you're starting to lose stuff as far as your velocity is concerned. You know, that's kind of what Tim Belcher is going through right now. He still has that power pitcher's mentality. He still thinks he can reach back and get a little bit extra, but that power pitcher's ability just doesn't seem to be there right now.
3-1, the count on Erstad. Upstairs, ball 4. Hudson upset as he issues his second walk of the night.
They talk about the changeup of Tim Hudson right there. That's basically just a circle change. The only difference is that pinky that's down there. What that'll do is that'll create more of a split-fingered fastball between these two fingers right here. Okay, the typical circle change, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, you've got this finger out of the way, so the pressure's in here, and it'll have that type of rotation. All Hudson does by sticking that down there, it just creates a split-fingered fastball and a tumbling type effect.
And again, it's the nail on his middle finger that he may be having a problem with. That's why he left his last start a little bit early. And we haven't seen him favoring it or looking at it on the mound between innings.
Take a look as he goes in there. There's the changeup. That's the one that we've just seen him display to us.
Makes hit through the right side for Orlando Palmeiro. And Darren Erstad never hesitated going first to third.
Well, obviously Tim Hudson got the ground ball that he was looking for the double play. But the problem was that his first baseman had to hold on the runner. There's the changeup. You're going to see Palmeiro well out in front. Look at the downward movement there, all right? Just one hit. But now look at the gap between first and second. Your defense was set up for something to be hit the opposite way. The pitch indicated the ball was going to be pulled. Look at Erstad. I tell you what, for a youngster out there learning to play the game of baseball, watch that man right there. Always hustling, always playing hard, doing things to help his ball club win games.
Mo Vaughn is the batter. He doubled into the left field corner his first time up. He can change the complexion of this one in a big way here. With the double, Vaughn's up just a point shy of 300 right now. 21 homers, 62 RBIs. Seems happier in his second year here in Anaheim. The new manager, as you say, Mike Scioscia's gotten almost universal approval from everybody here in Anaheim. And with the runner at third, not nearly as much of an infield shift on Vaughn here this time as his first time up. They have the shift on him like they did last time. Darren Erstad steals home in a heartbeat.
Pitching's all about slowing up bat speed and then speeding it up. Hudson threw the changeup that got the first strike. Mo Vaughn well out in front. Vaughn, being a hitter that will adjust, tried to stay back. And guess what? Hudson readjusted through the fastball right by him.
And he's in command now at 0-2. And Vaughn chases out of the strike zone, and he's gone. First out of the inning.
Right there, Tim Hudson is showing that ability that Art Howe was talking about before the game to turn it up a notch when he needs it. He threw the fastball by him. Now look at this. Comes right back with the changeup. The arm speed of a fastball. Look at all that intensity right there. Look at the arm coming through like it's really going to be something. And then, as they say, the dead fish just coming out of there. No velocity on that changeup. The movement taking it away from the hitter. And the big strikeout Hudson wanted.
Now with a double play, Hudson can get right out of this. Tim Salmon is the batter. Salmon walked in the first inning. First dad walked here to begin the third inning. And it went around to third on the base hit by Palmeiro. Angels got one, but stranded two in the first. They've got two on here again in the third. There's the move that got Tim Belcher an early shower. And all the Anaheim fans here, well aware of the call on Belcher last week, are hollering balk.
You know what? But for me, though, that's one of those plays in this situation that works even when it doesn't work. The runner at first base cannot take off on your first move right now. You keep the double play in order. And why I say that is Tim Hudson, you know, to keep him from running would probably have to go to a slide step, get quicker to home plate. Well, with runners at first and third and Tim Salmon at home plate, going to that slide step, you're going to lose some of your velocity. Well, you might, by trying to keep the runner from stealing the base, you might give up a 3-run homer. So just simply pick that leg up, give him the look like you haven't forgot about him, and now try to get the ground ball you need to get out of the inning.
2-1 inside. It says home plate on Mark Hirschbeck, who's the crew chief here tonight. Tim Hudson with a remarkable 20-4 career record. This was his second season in the big leagues. Just the 7th pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball to pick up 20 wins in his first 24 decisions. Stung into center field, a base hit for Salmon. Erstad will score. Now on the bobble, Palmeiro accelerates and it gets into third. Now the throw gets away on the infield. Palmeiro will stay right there, but bit by bit, the Angels starting to make some noise.
Well, I really think Hudson tipped this pitch off to the veteran Tim Salmon. We saw him looking in for the sign from catcher Ramon Hernandez. His first nod is yes. Okay, I like that pitch. But then what happened after he said yes? He goes, no. Okay, well, what that tells Salmon is I like the fastball, but I didn't like the location that you called it on. If it's a slider or a changeup, you're not going to locate that. You're just going to simply try to keep that down. There's a youngster making a young man's mistake and a veteran taking advantage of it.
So even if he gets the fastball and that's the pitch he wants, he's got to shake it off if it's the wrong location.
Right. He wanted the fastball, but what happened was Hernandez wanted it away. He said, I want the fastball, but I don't want it there.
Garrett Anderson takes a strike. The scoring on that play, an RBI single for Salmon, and an error on Ryan Christensen out in center field allows Palmeiro to go from second to third. And that could be a big play if Anderson can get a ball in the air, bring him home with a fly ball. Still just one out in the inning.
You know, Dan, there was a lot of times in my career, particularly the latter part of it, where I would look in and do exactly the same thing that Hudson did there. Yes, no, but I was going to throw an off-speed pitch because I had a veteran hitter in there that would have known that might have picked that up.
Yes. He can't believe that call. Felt it was inside. Hudson jumped out in front of Mo Vaughn 0-2, put him away with a changeup. And he does the same thing here to Garrett Anderson. He's a different pitcher when he gets out front.
And when he doesn't tip his pitches. If Anderson knew this was a changeup, he wouldn't have embarrassed himself like he did right there. But he did not know it. Look at the arm speed, even in slow motion. Look at how quick he gets through there. See the ball going down and away. That changeup's such a great pitch because you don't have to do anything with your elbow. You just simply let the grip create the movement and throw a fastball.
2 on, 2 out. Troy Gloss is the batter, and he'll look at a strike. as uncomfortable as Art Howe has to be watching the Angels bit by bit chip their way back into this. Mike Scioscia knows that in both the first inning and again here in the third, maybe they could have done more. Maybe they still will do more here. But they've let some RBI opportunities get away from them already. It's a lot of work through 2 2/3.
Well, you figure he's just recorded 8 outs. That is a lot of pitches when the goal is to somehow come up with 27.
First and third, 2 down, and the 1-1 to Gloss, and he'll chase down and away. It's 1-2.
At this point in the year, there's a lot of people that are out there playing banged up. Troy Glaus is one of those guys. Problem with that lower back. You see the hips open up right there, and he kind of looked to me like he flinched. Like that lower back might have grabbed him a little bit right there.
He hasn't hit at all since missing a couple of games with the back spasms a week ago. Hasn't hit at all since he's come back from that. Again, the third to first step-off move, and again, the crowd doesn't like it.
Well, now that right there I really don't understand. You've got 2 outs. Your focus should totally be on the guy at home plate. With 1 out, it was a different situation. You need the ground ball double play to get out of the inning. Now you just need to get the guy out at home plate, even if they steal second base right here. Salmon's not going anywhere.
Nice block behind the plate by Hernandez. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
So many good things that manager Mike Scioscia did for this ball club when he took over. You know, he told Darren Erstad just to relax. Told Troy Glaus, forget about your strikeouts. They're going to happen. When you put the ball in play, you do some damage. So just keep doing that.
Runner going, and Gloss will strike out to end the inning. The Angels get another one back, but still trail 7-2 through 3. With the A's still leading by a score of 7-2 over Anaheim, and coming your way on a Tuesday, July 4th, an unprecedented 12 games on ESPN and ESPN2. Most of you will see on ESPN the Orioles and the Yankees early. Erickson and Pettit, the scheduled pitching matchup. No love lost between the Rockies and Giants, and then the Diamondbacks and Astros in the third game. Regional action all day long as well. Randy Velarde leading off the 4th for the A's against reliever Mike Fury. Who knows what the Orioles and or Yankees may have done by July 4th. Scott Erickson, the reason we talk about him is he becomes a 10-5 guy July 5th, Wednesday. Velarde lifting a fly ball into left center, routine for Anderson. And if those games on ESPN aren't enough, how about ESPN2? You're going to be in St. Louis to check in on the Cardinals and the Reds. Montreal will be down in Atlanta. And then late, these Angels will host Seattle. Again, regional action. The Angels in a long stretch here against teams above them in the American League West, the A's and the Mariners. It could be a great three-way race.
Remember when they used to call this instead of the AL West, it was the AL Worst? It's certainly changed. Texas was the powerhouse. They're the team that's struggling now. Seattle's not going away. I look for that Mariner ball club to just get better when they get their pitching healthy. Freddie Garcia back, Alama, Jamie Moyer.
For the last 5 years, the 5 years the wild card's been in existence, in the American League, it's always come out of the American League East. And that certainly is far from a given this year. And as you said, if the playoffs started right now, you're looking at the wild card team, the Oakland A's.
And at home plate right now, we're looking at the biggest reason. Jason Giambi says when he's done playing baseball, he wants to be in the WWF.
He and McGuire tag team, right?
That's what he said. He told me the only problem was he said that Big Mac's held together with Scotch tape right now. Now, Big Mac, I didn't say that, all right? I'm just repeating what your old buddy Jason Giambi said.
Off the glove of Vaughn, and now Theory is late covering, and they don't get him. Good hustle by Giambi.
There's a bad play right here, and there's an outstanding effort play as well. Fury right here playing umpire. Sure, Movon should have caught this, but he didn't. Your job as a pitcher, don't anticipate. Your job is to get over there. He hesitated. He didn't get there. Look at the big first baseman right there. Sacrificing everything he's got to try to get something going in here. It's 7-2 right now, but with the power of Anaheim, this has become a ball game again. Fury has settled them down. Jason Giambi knows that, saying, hey, we got to put something up on the board. Look at there, up and running. Look at this, now right now. That's a big man right there. That's a future WWF All-Star. Diving into first base. Art House saying safe. You know, Jason Giambi, you don't have to have a meeting to motivate him to play hard, but what Art Howe had to say last night in that private team meeting looks like it stirred everybody up here.
Giambi's credited with a base hit on the play, so he's at first with one out here in the fourth inning. And the batter is Ben Grieve, an RBI single and then a strikeout tonight. There's the sweet swing of Grieve as he lines it into the right field corner for extra bases. Giambi chugging for third, will be held there. Grieve has a double. Talk about Rafael Palmeiro and Will Clark, and this guy's swing is as pretty as anybody's.
Well, there's no question about it. Former Rookie of the Year. All of a sudden now, Art House says he's starting to get a little bit more aggressive. Manager Art Howe thinks that he might have got caught up a little too much in that on-base percentage that Oakland teaches as their hitting philosophy for the most part. He wants to see the guy in the cleanup hole let it go from time to time. He says Ben Grieve has started to do that.
Got a double to send Giambi around to third with one out, and Olmedo Saenz is up. He's got an RBI single and 2 trips tonight.
I got tickled watching Jason Giambi run from first to third on that double. A lot of guys would have scored. I mean, but Jason Giambi runs hard. Everybody can run hard. I mean, just not everybody can run fast.
He may have used up most of the gas in the tank just getting down to first base on that infield hit.
The big man's on reserve right now.
On the corner. And it's 1-1 on Saenz.
But it's the effort on the part of Giambi getting there. The double from Grieve. Now look what happens. You got to bring the infield in. All kinds of opportunities to put some more runs on the board.
Because of that effort and Giambi's personality and the clubhouse that he has helped create along with Matt Stairs and others, he's pretty young to be getting this much leadership and this much respect, but he's earned every bit of it.
He has, and he learned how to play the game from his good buddy Mark McGuire. Big Mac was the first baseman there until he was traded to the Cardinals, and it was at that point that Giambi got to play first base every day. Same work habits. They both spent a lot of time in the weight room. Everybody can talk about the baseball and the bats and the fences and ballparks creating all the offense. To me, it's these guys and how big and strong they are. They just weren't built like Jason Giambi.
His little brother Jeremy reunited with a big brother after the trade from Kansas City back in the spring. 2-2, shot into right field. On comes Salmon. Giambi won't test his arm. Now, Jason Giambi, partially responsible for the culture that's been created in the clubhouse of the Oakland A's.
We have our own little swagger. You know, we're young and we're a little bit cocky, but we have a lot of fun too. Though we're We can have fun at the same time, as well as you know, play good baseball. We don't let anybody in our group that's not going to have fun. We make everybody have fun in our group. It's exciting to be a part. It's like going to a Little League team every day. It's exciting to go to the park. Guys get to the park early just to hang out with each other, and that's what happens when you're young.
And remember, that soundbite was given to us in the midst of a 4-game losing streak in which they didn't hit at all, but still they know it's a long season. The music blares after the losses for the most part, although Art Howe decided to call a meeting yesterday, and it seems to have given good results. But these guys don't get down on themselves. They'll have fun, no matter if they're on a losing streak or a winning streak.
You know, one of our fellow broadcasters, Mike McFarland, was telling me about his former club, that very same thing. Just how hard they play the game. He said he didn't think there was a team in baseball that had 25 guys pulling on the same side of the rope any harder than these Oakland A's were. They weren't as talented as a lot of the other teams they played the last couple of years, but all of a sudden now they are.
0-1 on Matt Stairs. He's 0 for 1 tonight, also his walk. If you asked a sampling of A's last year, are you surprised you're contending for the wild card spot with the Boston Red Sox and that you took them down to the final week of the season? I think a number of them last year would have said, yeah, we were a little bit surprised. Maybe we didn't think we'd be that good that soon. But this year, they came into camp saying our goal is to win the American League West, and they really believe in themselves on the strength of what they accomplished last year. How about the standings in the American League? If the playoffs were to begin today, the 4 teams who made it, not only last year, but also the year before, would all be on the outside looking in.
I think it's great. I think it's great for baseball.
Right now, it would be Chicago in the Central with the best record in all of baseball. Seattle leads the West, Toronto leads the East, and Oakland is in the wild card spot. The last 2 years, it's been New York, Cleveland, Texas, and Boston is the wild card team. Still 81 games to go, though. 2-2 to Stairs. Wondering, do the Indians have it in them? Will they get healthy and make a run in the second half? The Red Sox lost again today. They've fallen below 500. Can they compete? Will the Yankees go out and make another big deal?
They made a fairly big deal when they brought Dave Justice over there. There's going to be some offense. There could be a big momentum swing in this ball game right here, on this particular pitch or this at bat.
Side and a full count on Stairs.
Base hit right here, and no question that Anaheim will come to plate in the bottom of the 4th inning. A little bit flat, 9-1, 9-2, excuse me. But if you're able to get this out, I'm sorry, it would be 9-2 with a base hit. You get this out 7-2. They haven't gone anywhere since the top of the 1st. Hey, let's get back in this thing.
Bovon's got it, and the inning is over. Berry's done a good job in relief, and the Angels have come up to try and chip away a little bit more. Bottom of the 4th inning, Oakland 7 and the Angels 2, as you're watching ESPN2's coverage of Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Gumout. And no real secret, Rick, what has been key for Tim Hudson to succeed here tonight?
Yeah, he's all of a sudden started to find that down is real good and real effective. The fastball for a strike, in and out. Look at the late movement on all of those off-speed pitches. Changeup going down and away from the left-handed hitter. The slider going down and away from the right-handed hitter. And all of this coming from a guy that's 6 foot tall, 160 pounds. Dynamite. In a small package.
Yeah, like a Pedro Martinez to a lesser extent, obviously. Good things coming in small packages for some American League pitchers this year. Benji Molina looks at a strike to begin the bottom of the 4th. Bottom 3rd of the order coming up for the Angels this inning. Tim Hudson comes into this game tied for 4th in the American League in wins with 9, 2nd in opponents' batting average at 221, and 8th in strikeouts with 88. to loop to the right center for Stairs for the first out of the inning. Well, because he's not big, Tim Hudson gets asked every now and again about comparisons to Boston superstar Pedro Martinez.
I'd like to be known as Mini Pedro. He's one of the best out there, and I think that we may have a similar game. I don't think have the stuff that he has, but I think we pitch kind of similar, and we're both small, slender guys. And when I was coming up, I looked up to Pedro. I looked up to all the small pitchers that was out there doing well, because small right-handers are kind of looked down upon, and it's good to see those guys doing well.
And he's right. How many times have you heard scouts assess a draft-eligible player and say, like you, well, he's 6'7", he throws hard, he can really bring it, he's durable, he's got the look of a #1 guy, and sometimes a Tim Hudson might get overlooked as an 18-year-old a little more than a Rick Sutcliffe would.
I don't think even Oakland knew what they had when they drafted him in the 6th round. There's not a lot of 6th-round draft picks that develop into #1 starters as this guy is doing right now.
Adam Kennedy grounding out for the second out of the inning, and here's Benji Gill, who's 0 for 1 tonight.
See if this looks like Pedro in it. He's going to get the power from his lower half. Look at the big leg kick. Then all of a sudden that thrust right there at the end. A good extension on the arm. The arm's kind of like a dragster coming down that runway. You got to give it some room to slow down. Let that parachute open up, as he does with his follow through. And a little bit of Greg Maddux in this delivery, and everything comes out of that exact same spot. The fastball, changeup, slider. Sure, the wrist is doing different things, but the arm angle and the body are doing exactly the same thing. The reason there's so many bad swings.
1-2. Called strike 2 on a Benji Gill, who thought about it, held the bat back, and then had it called a strike anyway.
The one thing all young pitchers can learn from what you're seeing tonight with Tim Hudson, watch how quick he works. I mean, he's waiting on Gill to get in the box. Let's go. He's the first one out to the mound when it's time to start the inning.
Hernandez eventually applies the tag. Gill strikes out, and the inning is over. Hudson getting better and better. 7-2. The A's leading through 4. 7-2. The A's leading the Angels in the top of the 5th inning. Mike Fury coming on for Tim Belcher in the first. Belcher lasting just a third of an inning, giving up 5 hits, 3 walks, 1 of them intentional, 7 earned runs, the home run to Ryan Christensen. Fury allowed a couple of Belcher's runs to score, but since then has really shut down Oakland. He's pitched 3 2/3 shutout innings, and at least has given his team a chance to crawl back into it.
He looks to be running out of gas a little bit now, though, and I think Mike Scioscia sees the same thing. Couple of balls last inning hit hard. Already Mark Pekazik up in the bullpen, throwing along with Mike Fury.
Starting pitching was considered to be a potential weakness of this team coming into the season, and that's before the injury set in. They knew Belcher was coming back off elbow surgery, but Jason Dixon shoulder surgery, he's gone for the year. Ken Merker is still on the DL after that cerebral hemorrhage a couple of months ago. Tejada with a ground ball down to third. Kenny Hill's just back off the DL. But again, with all the pitching injuries they've had, the young guys have stepped in. The hitting has been maybe a little bit better than expected, and the Angels, although trailing here tonight, are 4 games over 500, and not a lot of people would have thought they'd have been over 500 midway through the season.
And the big void for me when I come to Anaheim is always seeing Chuck Finley out here.
Yeah.
I mean, how good would he have looked on this staff right now? And I got a feeling that Chuck's probably thinking the same thing.
There he is.
He went to Cleveland because he thought it was the opportunity to get back to the playoffs. Sure. He had not been in the postseason since his rookie year. And he's doing what typical Chuck Finley does. A lot of innings, a lot of strikeouts. But the Cleveland Indians aren't doing their part. They come into this afternoon's affair just 1 game over 500. It'll be 2 games over 500 now. They beat Minnesota 7-1. But a long ways out of getting into that playoff spot. And yet these Anaheim Angels are right there in the thick of things.
Chavez tonight has walked and flied out. And you talk about pitching injuries, the Indians have used 26 pitchers this year. He's done a nice job for Anaheim. Mark Petkazik warming up behind him in the bullpen. 1-2 to Chavez. Finds the inside corner. For the most complete baseball coverage on the internet, go to MajorLeagueBaseball.com. All kinds of features, stories, interviews, statistics, schedules, anything you need to know about your favorite team or player will be found at MajorLeagueBaseball.com. 2 outs, nobody on. Ramon Hernandez is up. Line drive to right field, right at Salmon. And what a job for Fury. 4 2/3 shutout innings in relief. It remains Oakland 7 and Anaheim 2. Oakland jumped all over Tim Belcher for 7 in the first inning, with the top of the order coming up at the bottom of the first. The Angels rather got 1. With the top of the order coming up at the bottom of the third, the Angels got 1. Ryder Christensen's had a big night for Oakland with a home run, an infield hit, and a couple of RBIs. And here in the bottom of the 5th, again, the top of the order coming up for the Angels. Every time Darren Erstad leads off an inning, the Angels have scored a run, and it's because he's gotten on a base both times. Hit a base hit in the first and then walked in the third.
Well, last year this ball game would have been over with. The Anaheim Angels offense 13th of 14 teams in the American League in runs scored. Coming into tonight's ball game, they're 2nd in the American League in batting average. Only Texas with a higher average. We've talked a lot about the offense and the power and the base on balls for the Oakland A's, but they're last in average. They're next to the last in defense. It's really been their pitching. It has been the strength. This guy right here is the ringleader of that staff. 5th in the American League in earned run average.
And a very good starting rotation. Tim Hudson, Kevin Apier, Gil Heredia, Mark Mulder, left-hander, coming on. Inconsistent as all young pitchers are. Omar Olivares, who was so good last year, is on the DL right now. But look around the American League and find a top 3 that's put up the numbers that Hudson, Apier, and Heredia have this year. I'm not sure Rick Peterson could find another trio. And I asked Art Howe before the game today about who he'd like to see go to the All-Star game. Joe Torre sends out a list to all American League managers just about pitchers. Give me a list of 10 pitchers you think should be in the All-Star game. And Art Howe said he had several of his own players on that list, although he didn't want to say who. He says that's private, but let's just say we're pushing a number of different guys. Fly ball to center field. 1 down in the inning, and we've got an update back in the studio. Here's Brian Kenny.
Dan, Gumout takes us to Pac-Bell. We'll go to the 4th inning. 2 on San Francisco, 1st and 3rd. Eric Gagne on the hill for L.A. And Rich Aurilia hitting .350 against L.A. this season. Makes it a 3-1 ball game. They're in the 5th. Dodgers, though, are threatening, have 2 men on. Dan?
All right, Brian, thank you. And a look at the National League Western Division standings. A pretty good race in both Western divisions right now. How about the Rockies?
All of a sudden, they started catching the baseball. Solidified things down there in their bullpen. And I think that's the reason that Oakland's just not going to go away here in the AL West. Jason Isringhausen, their closer, accepted that role, thrived on it, and has had some success at it.
2-1. Tim Hudson's been getting better and better over the last couple of innings. As we mentioned, not too many guys have won 20 times in their first 24 decisions. Only 7 guys ever, only 4 of them in the last half century. Looped into left field. It'll drop for a base hit in front of Grieve, and Palmeiro is 2 for 3. It's not bad company. Vida Blue, Whitey Ford, Juan Guzman.
What separates Hudson from most young pitchers is that he's got the ability to get both left and right-handed hitters out. A lot of young right-handed pitchers have not developed the changeup as Hudson has. He not only can get left-handed hitters out, but he's one of the best at doing that in the American League this year. Left-handers only hitting .234 off of him. That's 5th best in the American League. But speaking of left-handed hitters,
Big Mo, a double and a strikeout tonight.
Mo won the first battle against Hudson with the double down the left field line. Hudson won the second battle. Had men at first and third, was able to get the strikeout, but now the shadows have gone away, and Mo should be able to see the rotation.
On the appeal, no swing. It's been pointed out to me by our statistician tonight, Mark Domeno, that the White Sox starting rotation has to get some credit too. They've got Baldwin, Eldred, Soraka, and Parquet, who are all in the top 10 in the American League in ERA. So that's the one staff that might rank above these Oakland starters. Good thing we've got Mark along tonight, or who knows what we'd be saying on the air.
Hudson put himself in a bad count. Hitters count 2-0. Good fastball, good swing. Just a little bit of late movement on that fastball, keeping Mo Vaughn from being able to make good solid contact. Well, that's what, you know, there's so many things to like about Hudson, but that's one thing you can forget about radar gun. When you can throw a fastball for a strike and a good hitter can't put it in play, you've got something special. Hudson sees what happened there. Vaughn had his fastball time, so what does he do? Comes back with a changeup. Bo Vaughn way out in front. Now Bo Vaughn doesn't know what to look for. Here's right here. The last swing, perfect, right on top of it. That swing, just too quick.
Runner at first, 1 out, and a 2-2 count on Vaughn, with the A's leading 7-2 here in the 5th. Dropped from the upper deck down to the second deck here. After Mo Vaughn and Tim Salmon. He's already got an RBI single tonight. Orlando Palmeiro is the runner at first with 1 out. Held by Giambi. Angels down 5. And again the 2-2. Vaughn lifts it into very shallow left center. 2 down. Back to Brian Kenny for an update.
Dan, come out Texas to the Rangers and Mariners. Of course, A's fans want to know about those Mariners. Game and a half up on Oakland. Pudge Rodriguez here doing him a favor. Puts that throw, and then it goes. That's going to score a run. Rusty Greer scores. David Segui would drive in Pudge. Pudge now number 2 in the league in slugging. It's 2-1. Texas now leading in the 7th inning. Dan?
Well, I guess the question in the West is, can Texas get back into the race? Do they have enough to make this division even more interesting? The Seattle Mariners right now on top. Mariners have won 8 of 9 and are attempting to extend a team record by winning their 9th consecutive series tonight. And remember, this is a team 5 months ago. Well, they had to trade Junior, and they're in a lot of trouble right now. They're going to lose A-Rod, and they've got a pretty nice ball club.
Question for me was on that play, what was Ricky Henderson doing? I know it's going to go as an extra base hit because he didn't get the glove on it, but I don't think he could have taken a worse angle on that ball.
This wouldn't be the first time that someone's wondered, what is Ricky Henderson doing? But he's been doing it for 20 years.
Now, there's some things he does real well. Believe me, I can remember that.
When you get Ricky, you get the whole package, for better or for worse. 1-0 on Salmon. He's walked and single. Again, the good pitches are down from Hudson. That'll end the inning. Jason Giambi's coming up third for the A's at the top of the 6th. Oakland leads by 5. Score hasn't changed since the 3rd inning. It's the A's 7 and the Angels 2, now moving to the 6th. They're on a beautiful night in Anaheim. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Office of the Commissioner of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions may not be disseminated without express written consent. The A's trying to salvage the final game of this 3-game series after losing 7-0 and then 7-2 in the first 2 games. A new pitcher in for the Angels after a great 4 2/3 in relief by Mike Fury. There's another right-hander, Mark Petkaizek. And they bounce into foul territory. Petkaizek is in his 2nd year with the Angels, won 10 games in relief last year. And he missed a month earlier this season with a viral syndrome, which was actually a mild form of meningitis. But another guy who can work more than an inning at a time and chew up some innings in the middle. For Oakland, huge first, nothing since.
Might be time for another meeting from manager Art Howe, huh? Come on, boys.
Quick huddle.
Well, obviously, Mike Scioscia doesn't feel like this ball game is over. He's bringing in one of his more reliable relievers than Petkaizek here, thinking that if we can just hold him on for a couple more innings, we might be able to get to Hudson. And if we can't get to Hudson, at least maybe get him out of the ball game. Maybe that fingernail that we showed earlier will start affecting him.
1-2 to Ryan and Christensen, just about hits him. Well, 10 years ago, a 7-run lead, it was game over, but now, who knows, as Christensen just does avoid the pitch. I mean, look no further than that Braves-Mets game just a couple of days ago when the Mets got 10 in the 8th inning. That's a fair ball down the line. Christensen is having a whale of a night. He's now got a homer and a single and a double. As we go back to Brian Kenny in the studio.
Dan, we have more with San Francisco and L.A. now. Jeff Kent, he slugged an astronomically high 804 in June, getting a good piece of this one. 22 home runs on the year for Jeff Kent. Out that goes 4-1 San Francisco. They're now on the top of the 6th. Dan?
Brian, Jeff Kent is the National League leader in RBIs. Came into the game tonight with 78 RBIs, just about at the midway point of the season. Christensen's leadoff double. 3rd hit of the night. Randy Velarde's coming up.
Talking with Jason Giambi before tonight's game, he gives a lot of credit for the 75 RBIs that he has this year to this guy right here, Randy Velarde. Situation like this, man on second, nobody out. Velarde's ability to advance that runner. Even if he doesn't get a base hit, more times than not in this situation, he'll hit something to the right side of the baseball field so that Christensen can get to 3rd, and normally Giambi can pick up the easy RBI.
With a couple of base hits tonight, a run scored, an RBI. Giambi waiting on deck. He's got a hit, and he's also walked tonight.
Try to reverse that thinking as a pitcher in this situation, knowing the veteran's going to go the other way. Take something off, try to get him out in front, try to get some movement to the inner half of the plate, make it more difficult on him to do what he's trying to do.
Petkaizek out in front 0-2. Drops a curveball down and away, ball 1. You see all kinds kinds of different hitters hitting second. Sometimes patient hitters, sometimes guys with speed. Tampa Bay's been hitting Steve Cox, a big burly first baseman, up in the 2 spot on occasion in the last couple of weeks. But you're right. This is the kind of guy you'd love to see here, the guy who will give himself up for the team, let the guy in front of him score the runs, and let the guy behind him drive in the runs.
I had an interesting conversation with Bobby Valentine, the manager of the Mets, about leadoff hitters, and he said, sure, you'd like to have a guy that could bunt, steal a lot of bases, but how many of those guys are there out there? Great leadoff hitters, there just aren't many. Bobby said there's maybe 3 or 4. So what I want a guy that can get that 2-out base hit. Because that situation comes up a lot where you got a guy on base, your pitcher comes up, you sacrifice him over 1 or 2 outs, and you need that clutch hit. With a lot of clutch hits this year, hitting over 300 with runners in scoring position, also over 300 against right-handed pitching.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, broke his elbow, and he was real worried that maybe he wasn't going to still be playing right now. Very serious injury. Hurt it the first time, came back, hit a couple of home runs his first 2 days back, aggravated the injury, missed the rest of the season. He just wouldn't give Velarde anything away that he could chip to the right side.
Well, he tried to get him looking out over the plate with that breaking ball. He wouldn't bite on that. So Pekajic, look at the movement on that fastball. Looked to be a strike the whole way. Velarde not able to do his job because of just a tremendous pitch selection there on the part of Pekajic. He knows he's got to keep putting zeros up here for these Angels to have a chance to come back. 1 run could just devastate this team. You keep them from scoring, all of a sudden that hope remains that you might come back and win a ball game.
Quick conference between Pekajic and Benji Gill about Jason Giambi. There's a base open, but an equally hot hitter in Ben Grieve waiting on deck. Outside, says Mark Hirschbeck, 1-0. Giambi tonight in the first inning walked and scored. The walk for him, the 72nd walk he's taken this season. He has tied for the major league lead in that department with none other than his good buddy Mark McGwire. It appears McGwire did indeed take that natural ability of Giambi's and teach him well when they were teammates. And wouldn't it be nice for both of them if they were the starting first baseman in the All-Star game? The numbers are climbing, and I guess the only real concern about Giambi is when his contract is up at the end of the 2001 season, will the A's be able to keep him? They've signed Chavez and Grieve and Tejada. Tim Hudson apparently is next as they begin to discuss a multi-year deal with him, but this guy is going to be up in the stratosphere, Jason Giambi, at the end of the next season. Hudson might be a little more manageable right now at a much earlier point in his career. Will the A's draw enough? I guess, will they win enough to draw enough to make enough to sign Jason Giambi? Base hit. Here comes Christensen, and he'll score. Jason Giambi with his 76th RBI on the season, and the A's bump their lead to 8-2.
I talked to opposing players about Jason Giambi, and they say they walk away from his home ballpark there in Oakland with even more respect for the numbers he's able to put up offensively. That's one of the best pitcher ballparks in baseball up there in Oakland. You don't get any help on home runs. Well, he didn't get any help from Randy Velarde getting the runner advanced to where a ground ball or sacrificed fly would drive it in. So what does the big man do? Picks up the base hit and puts Oakland back on the board here.
Big nights for both Christensen and Giambi. And this guy at the plate as well, Ben Grieve, and he stings one right to the shortstop Gill and back to first for double play. That'll be all for the A's in the 6th, but Giambi adds to the lead. It's 8-2 Oakland over Anaheim. 6th here in Anaheim. ESPN has complete coverage of Major League Baseball's All-Star festivities, beginning with the 2000 Future Stars game. The best of the minors, the Stars, of tomorrow, next Sunday at 3 Eastern on ESPN2. Then Monday night at 8 Eastern on ESPN, the best home run hitters in baseball slugging out in the Home Run Derby. And finally on ESPN later that evening, the Celebrity Hitting a Challenge at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Garrett Anderson at first pitch swinging with a fly ball out to Ben Grieve. One down in the Anaheim 6th.
Well, if you're Art Howe, you gotta like that right there. A lot of pitchers might panic a little bit. Hey, that ball was hit hard. It was almost hit to the warning track. But you know what? It took one pitch, very little effort, and you got one out. I think the fingernail of Tim Hudson seems to be okay. We've seen more fastballs since the first inning.
He has definitely looked more comfortable the last 3 innings than he did the first 3 innings. Really turned it up a notch in the 3rd. A run in already. 1st and 3rd, 1 out. And he got back-to-back strikeouts of Garrett Anderson and Troy Gloss to win the inning. A hit or two there, and it's a whole different ball game. But he really buckled down. Lost the batter here. He's 0 for 2 tonight and continues to struggle in the last week. And now 1 for his last 20 with 13 strikeouts, but still conceivably could be the starting third baseman in the All-Star game for the American League. Cal Ripken's going to win the voting, obviously, but Ripken is on the DL. Left-hander Mike Holtz now warming for the Angels. Two. Cal Ripken retains the right, even though he's on the DL, if he's feeling up to it, to request permission to play in the All-Star game, something that's up to him and the team and Joe Torre and Major League Baseball. So Ripken could still start, even if he's on the DL. But if he doesn't, Loss would be a candidate.
You know, and if Cal Ripken is able to start, I think he should, because it's a decision that the fans made. It doesn't say that that's the game for the people that had the best first half.
A pop-up in foul territory. If Ripken does go to the All-Star game, it would be 18 consecutive trips to the All-Star game for the American League. As we show you the Gumout in-game box for the Anaheim Angels. They have scored only 2 runs tonight. The RBIs for Salmon and Anderson. They had some chances in the 1st and in the 3rd to do more damage, but really, by and large, Tim Hudson has quieted this team down, the team that scored 7 runs each of the last 2 nights.
Well, they had to figure coming into this ball game it was going to be a ball game like this out of Tim Hudson. They hoped that the finger would be a problem, but the winning percentage of Tim Hudson just unbelievable. 15-2 in 1997 as a senior at Auburn. Drafted in the 6th round. What has he done since then? Coming into tonight's ball game as a professional, his record 44-14.
And 20-4 at the major league level. The ground ball back toward him. 3 up and 3 down go the Angels at the bottom of the 6th. Hudson getting better, and the A's have a 6-run lead. Hudson having another good night, perhaps on his way to his 10th win of the season and a 9-game winning streak, which would be the longest in the major leagues this season. And just moments ago, as Hudson comes off the field, you know he's impressing everybody in the stadium when he's impressing the men in blue.
There's a crew chief, Mark Hirschbeck, giving him a little pat right there. No telling from here what he said, but probably something along the line is, kid, I like the way you work quick.
That's Brian O'Nora talking to Tim Salmon out in right field about an earlier play.
Now Salmon might just be trying to butter him up a little bit. I have to admit, I'm a little bit guilty of that myself.
Oh, were you?
Oh,
yeah.
You got the chance.
Drop a nice call here, a good effort there, and see if it helps you out down the road.
Oh, you're doing a great job tonight. Have you lost some weight? You look good, you know.
Oh, really? You would stoop to that?
Oh.
Whatever it took, huh?
That's it.
7th inning and a new pitcher on for the Angels. 4th pitcher of the night, left-hander Mike Holtz. start Olmedo signs with a pitch inside of ball 1.
Holtz just needs a little bit of work. 24th appearance of the year for him. 24 appearances, though, only 14 and 2/3 of an inning.
Signs is way out in front as he crushes it into the second deck.
Mike Holt's one of those guys that normally called on late in the ball game to come in and get one particular left-handed hitter out. Now that's looking back on things. You know, being a starting pitcher was pretty cool, working once every 5 days. But how about coming in and just getting one guy out?
Well, look at the break on that.
I think this is the reason right here that Holtz is out there pitching in this situation. This curveball is the pitch that he has to have to be successful. He's got to be able to locate it. Well, that's you know what? And that shouldn't have been a hit by pitch either.
You're right.
He throws his right leg simply in it. Watch the right leg come in. Now, you're supposed to try to get out of the way of it. He can see right away it's a slow pitch. Now look at him. Yeah, I'll take that there. My on-base percentage will go up. And I'm the leadoff hitter doing my job.
Stairs will take a strike. 0 for 2 with a walk tonight. As Signs at first. Vaughn plays behind him. Signs not a threat. The A's already leading by 6. Now he's wide with a fastball and an amazing stab by Molina to keep that ball from going to the backstop.
Why man needs some work right here. Location's off. Curveball's bad. Fastball's worse. Matt Stairs with a little wake-up call. Oh my goodness. I don't mind seeing hitters get moved from the shoulders down. That's a bad spot up there. But after doing it, you start that curveball off in the same spot. You're going to be pretty effective with that. And that's what Holtz is just struggling with his location right now. That fastball, he didn't mean to come up and in, but he did come up and in with a little effect.
And you can see the curveball the next pitch, how tough he can be on lefties because of where it's coming from. Stairs after called strike 2 just with a little shake of the head as if to say, where did that come from and how did it end up where it ended up?
Well, Stairs is one of those true professionals that he just doesn't let stuff like that bother him. I mean, he's just a blue-collar guy. Goes out there, he plays hard, he plays every day. What you see is what you get. No excuses. He's been banged up all year. The average not where he wants it. But his name's in the lineup.
But a huge year for the A's last year. A guy who was overlooked when he was younger and had bounced around from a few organizations, from Montreal to Boston before coming to Oakland. Played in Japan as well, played a lot of winter ball in Mexico, and never got a chance to play every day until he came to the A's. 97 played a lot. 98 finally became an everyday player as he takes called strike 3, and we send you back to the studio again. Here's Brian.
Dan, thank you very much. Seattle came into the 7th inning down 2-1 to Texas, now leading this one big. Edgar Martinez with a 2-run shot. Rick mentioned on-base percentage. Edgar known for his on-base percentage, but he's slugging 150 points higher this year than he has for his career. It's 8-2.
Well, and Brian's all over the RBI leaders tonight. He showed us Jeff Kent over in the National League before. Edgar Martinez is your major league leader in RBIs. One of the biggest reasons the Seattle Mariners are in first place in the American League West.
I thought Seattle was supposed to be missing some offense with the trade of Ken Griffey Jr. I think the people that predicted that forgot that they still have 3 guys there that won batting titles. Olerud did it with Toronto. A-Rod has done it. Edgar's done it twice.
Back 1-2. You've also got guys in Edgar Martinez and John Olerud especially, who although they will hit home runs, don't think of themselves as home run hitters. In a big Safeco field, they're just as happy to use the gaps and make that ballpark work to their advantage, even though it's a big ballpark.
Now we can remember when they wanted John Olerud in Toronto to hit with more power. tried to make a pull hitter out of him. Well, they took a batting title winner and took him to about a 280 hitter without any power. It wasn't to be found there. He's a guy that's got to use the whole field. And there's a lot of field to use up there at Safeco. Unlike that old ballpark they had, the Kingdome.
You didn't enjoy pitching there?
No. No. But it had more to do with a guy named Griffey Jr.
Yeah,
than
that's
it
true.
did the dimensions of that ballpark.
Here at Edison International Field tonight. Next Sunday over on ESPN, Mike Piazza and the New York Mets will host the New York Yankees. Sunday night at 8 Eastern time, part of that unusual series because of the rain out earlier in the season. Day game in the Bronx and then a night game at Shea as part of this 3-day, 4-game series between the two New York teams. And if Piazza's still on that RBI streak by next week, he'll have the record. He is 2 away from tying, 3 away from breaking Ray Grimes' record of 17 consecutive games with at least 1 run driven in. One and 2 on Tejada with a runner at first and 1 out here in the top of the 7th inning. Signs hit by a pitch to begin the inning, then Stayers struck out. Pretty good at bat here for Tejada, who's fouling off everything that Holtz has to offer.
I was talking with the third base coach for the Oakland A's about Miguel Tejada and how was he able to turn it around. Ronnie Washington said that he simply needed 24. 24? What do you mean? He said he turned 24 this year. It was just the magic age for him to mature and not take bad at-bats out to play defense with him, not take errors to home plate with him. He said also that Randy Velarde, the veteran second baseman, kind of an emotional safety net for their young shortstop. There's a look at Ronnie Washington. Outstanding third base coach, infield instructor.
Again, the 1-2 to Tejada, and it's down and in ball 2. The Oakland Athletics scored 7 times in the first inning. Tim Belcher went just a third of an inning. And the Angels got 1 back in the first, 1 in the third to make it 7-2. But Tim Hudson's had a very good night. The A's added 1 in the 6th and hold that 8-2 lead right now as Tejada hits a line drive out to Garrett Anderson. And after a long at the bat, Holtz will finally record the out. 2 down.
This has got to seem like a 9-inning complete game for the left-handed reliever Mike Holtz. Normally called on just to face a hitter or two. Expected to pitch this inning. I would imagine this will be it for him. Mike Scioscia knows that he finds that release point on his curveball. He can be a guy that can help them win a ball game, be effective late in the game.
Here's Eric Chavez to get a look at the lefty. Chavez this season is hitting just .143 against left-handed pitching, 7 for 49. Doesn't get a chance to play all the time against lefties. Breaking ball misses low, 2-0. These are the kinds of pitchers that when you develop into a Jim Thome, Rafael Palmeiro, Carlos Delgado, it's automatic. You know you're going to see him in the 7th or 8th inning every single time.
It's almost not even fair, though, to look at their statistics because those are the guys that they face. You know, they don't get to face a lot of guys that aren't good left-handed hitters. I remember Sterling Hitchcock with the San Diego Padres. They talked about how he couldn't get left-handed hitters out. He said, well, stop and think about the left-handed hitters that I face. You know, I don't face the platoon guys. I face the guys from the right-hand side of the plate. I face Barry Bonds, Mark Grace, Ken Griffey Jr., Jason Giambi. We've got to put him in there now.
2-1. And it's grounded foul. 2-2 on Chavez. Here at the ballpark, this is what's known as the Erstad run. as they time you going 90 feet. Erstad does it in 3.23, and she did it in 5.29. Got a little work to do, but I like her form.
She might not be able to beat him, but that beats me right now.
Boy, an awkward swing on a good breaking ball from a Holtz. Chavez strikes out. A 7th inning stretch in Anaheim.
ESPN2 Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Gum Out. Drive your fuel system clean with a complete line of Gum Out Performance Fuel Additives.
Bottom of the 7th inning in Anaheim. It's the Oakland A's 8 and the Anaheim Angels 2. Dan Shulman and Rick Sutcliffe with you here on a Sunday night of baseball on ESPN2, presented by Gum Out. As the A's try to salvage the 3rd and final game of this series, the Angels are getting set to welcome Seattle beginning this week, whereas Oakland goes to Texas as the AL West continues to have its 4 teams play one another, shaping up as one of the more interesting divisions in the second half. Here's Adam Kennedy to begin the inning. He's 0 for 2 tonight. The bottom 5 hitters in the Anaheim order tonight, 5 through 9 guys, Anderson, Gloss, Molina, Kennedy, and Gill, are 0 for 13 against Tim Hudson.
Well, that's what great pitchers will do to that part of the lineup. They have weaknesses. Normally the guys at the bottom part of the lineup only do damage when they get ahead in the count, as Adam Kennedy is here in this situation. The key to getting those guys out consistently, get ahead of them.
Kennedy down to a knee on a big swing. He just got a piece of it and fell awkwardly, but he's all right.
I've heard Mickey Hatcher, the hitting instructor of the Anaheim Angels, say many times that you don't have to be long to be strong. Adam Kennedy right there, a little bit long. Eric Chavez in the last inning. Take a look at this. All right, oops, it's a, even he had to laugh at that. Art Howe told me before the game he's done a good job protecting his young third baseman against tough left-handed pitchers for the most part. They go to Texas from here, and the manager Art Howe said that. Take a look at Kennedy, a long fly ball, the warning track, and caught. But to finish the thought, Dan, Art Howe said that he's going to let him play Wednesday night against Kenny Rogers, just to give him some confidence, give him some at-bats against a tough left-handed pitcher. But then they go on to Arizona from there. A guy named Randy Johnson will be waiting on him. And, yeah, just like you're doing right now, Art Howe shook his head.
Not yet. There's Derek Turnbow up in the Anaheim pen right now. Mike Scioscia's going to get just about everybody in for an inning or so. Angels have already used 4 pitchers tonight. Benji Gill is the batter. Gary DiSarcina hurt again. And pretty important player for the Angels when he's in there. Kevin Stocker was picked up in Tampa Bay. He's hurt. Benji Gill was one of those 7 guys we talked about earlier who came into camp vying for a middle infield position. Maybe second to back up short, but Gill's become the starter at short because of the injuries. Boy, what a hot prospect he was supposed to be. What a big-time player he was supposed to be coming up. But never did hit for much of an average. Struck out a lot. Has played a lot better defensively the last few weeks. And continues to get the regular at-bats out at short.
That's a tough combination for him right now, hitting under 200 on the year against right-handed pitchers, and then a right-handed pitcher with the ability of Tim Hudson out there. Scioscia might like to give him a day off. It's going to be 4 tough at-bats on the night for him, but it's just the fact that he's played such good defense this year. And he also had a good month of June. He had 293 during the month of June when the Angels played so well. The Angels during the month of April, May, and June. The first time since 1995, man, that they've had 3 consecutive months where they were 500 or better.
Gill chases, and that'll be all for him. 2 down.
I know that the game of baseball is all about players. You're going to win with good players. You're going to lose with bad players. But I got to think that Mike Scioscia and his coaching staff has done a lot for this ball club and the chemistry that was created. I mentioned earlier the clubhouse last year. It looked more like a discotheque. I mean, there were big screen TVs that blocked everybody off. It was dark. You know, you couldn't see anybody in there.
That's where they put the TV.
That's where they moved it to.
Got some baseball coming your way Wednesday night on ESPN at 7 Eastern. Most of you will see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Reds looking to make a move to get back in the race of the NL Central. Some will see Baltimore and New York. On ESPN2, Arizona and Enron to take on the Astros. Others will see the Expos and the Braves. ESPN.com, part of the Go Network. Go.com for all your needs on a Major League Baseball. 2 outs, nobody on. 7 in a row retired by Tim Hudson. And here's Darren Erstad, who has singled, walked, and flied out. .371 with 129 hits midway through the season. He is second in the American League in batting to Nomar Garciaparra. Peterson's going to get a safer seat. Erstad also among the leaders in stolen bases, outfield assists, and I would have to think off the top of my head, web gems. He has made some great catches that we have had a chance to see this year.
And you know, all he was told in spring training, that being Erstad, by Mickey Hatcher, the hitting instructor, Mike Scioscia, the manager, was, hey, you know, you don't have to go at 110% all the time. Erstad with some terrible numbers last year. 253, 308 on base percentage. And I don't think I ever saw him smile. I thought somebody took his teeth out and like hit him in the locker or something. And he's done a lot of smiling this year and had a lot of good things to smile about.
Done a great job of hitting the ball the other way, which is what he did tonight for his base hit back in the first inning. A tremendous athlete, all-state in 4 sports in high school: baseball, football, hockey, and track. And he went on to become the punter and the place kicker at Nebraska 6 years ago when they won the national championship.
How about that? You won the national championship in '94, the #1 draft in '95.
Again left field, another base hit. Just like the first inning, and that's the 130th hit on the season for Darren Erstad.
Well, you just got to look at Hudson right there shaking his head a little bit frustrated. Thought he made a great pitch. I've been getting a lot of people out on that changeup down and away just off the plate, but not able to get Erstad out there. And I know in the back of Tim Hudson's mind, he's got to be thinking, you know what? I'm going to be facing this guy for a long time to come.
Amazing thing about Erstad is he's not just chipping the ball the other way. He's got 16 home runs on the season. So he's turning on some pitches as well. There's Palmeiro, and he'll look at a strike.
How about that? 53 RBIs on the year last year for Erstad, 142 games. Already, he's got 59 RBIs.
As a leadoff hitter. He's at first with 2 outs. Palmeiro's 2 for 3 tonight. Got the bunt, got the bat out of there in time. 1-1 the count on Orlando Palmeiro.
Well, that just shows you right there that these Anaheim Angels have not given up on this ball game. They're down 6 right now, bottom of the 7th inning, but they've got 7 big outs left. Hudson's got to be getting near the end of the night for him. Anybody anybody else they bring in there is going to be a relief for Anaheim, the way that Hudson pitched tonight.
He just looks like such a different guy than he looked like in the first inning. He had real trouble in the first inning. Fell behind the batters, gave up a couple of hits, didn't look comfortable, didn't look like he was throwing his fastball often at all.
Well, you mentioned that, Dan, and I think that might have been the game plan. You know, be careful with that fastball. That's the pitch that we mentioned that gave him the most trouble. Try to get into the game a little bit without using a lot of that pitch or bothering that finger, and it wasn't going to work that way.
3-1.
Really, the only knock as far as statistics are concerned with Tim Hudson is the fact that you can run on this guy. 11 stolen bases and just 13 attempts against him, but the Angels down this far, they've got to make sure that they're safe.
Runners going. Strike 2 taken. And the throw almost goes into center field as Erstad picks up the stolen base.
Well, you can make that 12 out of 14, but you cannot hold this against the catcher, Ramon Hernandez, for the Oakland A's. Giambi wasn't holding him on. He's off and running right there. Take a look back. Doesn't matter. I know I got a great jump. I've still got plenty of time to beat the throw. There's nothing more Hernandez can do. I mean, that's coming up with it a bit down the line, but even if it would have been on the money, Erstad had that bag stolen.
He's in scoring position with 2 outs, and it's 3-2 on Palmeiro with Mo Vaughn next. The Oakland bullpen starting to get busy now for the first time tonight. 3-2. Went into the Anaheim dugout. Lefty is Mike Magnanti, and the righty is Jeff Tam. Set of guys in front of the closer, who is Jason Isringhausen, the one-time Met prospect who has switched from a starter to a reliever, healthy, and he's had a good year. Throwing the ball hard. 3-2. Lined into center and caught by Christensen to end the inning. So Erstad is stranded. Hudson gets out of it. 8-2 A's through 7. Coming up on ESPN after the Dodgers and Giants, Dan Patrick and Rich Eisen, your hosts on SportsCenter. Tom Terrific, a different Tom Terrific at Shea today. Sunday conversation with Jeff Kent, the National League leader in RBIs, and Sammy Sosa has turned up the heat on the Chicago Cubs. First pitch of the top of the 8th inning. Ramon Hernandez hits it a mile high in left field. 1 down as we go back to Brian Kenny.
Yeah, we showed you Jeff Kent before. They'll do a little something on him on SportsCenter coming up in here. Good night for that. You got all that. Second home run of the game, is 23rd of the year, and San Francisco just up by 1 now, up by 2. It's 5-3 in the 8th. Dan?
One of the best rivalries in baseball. The Dodgers and Giants getting a chance to play over on ESPN. Here on ESPN2, Derek Turnbow has come into the game for the Angels. 5th pitcher of the night for Anaheim. 8-2 Oakland. The A's with 7 in the first and haven't really been threatened seriously since. What an effort for Tim Hudson, who stands to go to 10-2 on the season. And that list of 7 pitchers in history who started their careers with 20 wins in their first 24 decisions. If he gets the win and goes to 21-4 in his first 25, 2 more pitchers would drop off the list. So he would be one of only 5 pitchers ever to start a career 21-4.
See there, he and pitching coach Rick Peterson taking a look at that nail, seeing what kind of damage was done during the course of the ball game. Hopefully better than it was the last time out. Trainers will obviously get back to work on it. And hopefully that problem for manager Art Howe, as we look at Art there, will go away.
side to Christensen, who's a triple away from the cycle, making the most of a rare opportunity to start. Terrence Long had been starting every day. Recently put together a 17-game hitting streak. A homer in the first, a single in the second, a double in the sixth. Left-hander Magnanti throwing for the A's. Mo Vaughn due up first in the bottom of the 8th inning for the Angels. A lefty-lefty matchup on the way.
That's the reason Art Howe would have him up right now. Mo Vaughn, a left-hander. You go to the right-hander Tim Salmon, and then another left-hander with Garrett Anderson. You've only got one left-handed reliever in your bullpen, as both of these teams do tonight. Those are the spots that you pick to bring him in when you're trying to win a ball game. Mike Scioscia, on the other hand, when he brought in his left-hander Mike Holtz, just trying to get some outs.
Swing and a miss, and Christensen's gone, 2 down. Let's take a look at the Gumout in-game box for the Oakland Athletics, and just about all the damage came back in the first inning when the A's sent 13 batters to the plate. Ryan Christensen hit Tim Belcher's second pitch of the night out of the ballpark to left center. And the A's would go on to score 7 times on 7 hits and 3 walks in the first inning. They would add a run in the 6th on an RBI single by Jason Giambi. And the A's apparently will need a win to keep pace with Seattle. And the Mariners leading Texas late in Arlington. 2-0 the count. Tightening up a bit in the American League East today, with the Yankees winning and the Blue Jays losing. The White Sox and Indians both won in the American League Central, so no changes there. Atlanta beat the Mets today to wind up that 4-game series at 2 wins apiece. Cincinnati gained a game on the Cardinals, and they're going to play the Cardinals this week. You'll see them a couple of times, Tuesday and Wednesday.
I get the pleasure to be there for both of those. You know, one thing about going to watch the Cardinals play, you always want to get there early to watch McGuire take BP.
There's ball 4 to Velarde.
I mean, it in itself is worth paying the price for that ticket for admission.
Without question.
There's another guy coming to home plate that I'd buy a ticket to come out and watch. We saw him earlier. The desire that he has to win a ball game. Like a base hit off the glove of Mo Vaughn. A head-first dive into first base.
Grounds it to the right side. It's played by Velarde to avoid the baseball. But Giambi is retired to end the inning. Mo Vaughn coming up first in the bottom of the 8th. The Angels trail 8-2. Good night for Jason Giambi and the A's. They've got an 8-2 lead on the Anaheim Angels, heading to the bottom of the 8th inning. And there's another chance to look in on Jason Giambi in the latest edition of ESPN the magazine. And Tiger's on the cover, but look inside of the back page. And Jason Giambi is Dan and Patrick's guest for outtakes in this issue. Also some baseball features on Sammy Sosa and Todd Helton, who is having a remarkable season.
I know one thing, too, with Tiger Woods on the cover, an article on him. There's going to be a gentleman by the name of Butch Harmon mentioned several times. Just got back from Las Vegas. Had the opportunity the last 3 or 4 days to get to know Butch. What a wonderful guy.
After game at all?
He wouldn't even work with me. It was my daughter and my wife that he was trying to help. That he did help.
Here's left-hander Mike Magnanti coming into the game in the bottom of the 8th inning. A great 7 innings for Tim Hudson, who gives up a couple of runs on 6 hits and stands to go to 10-2 on the season. With nobody on base, the A's go back to the shift that they had earlier in the game. Although sometimes some teams, even those who like to shift, if there's a lefty on the mound who throws pitches that will break away from Vaughn, might not have as drastic a shift on.
biggest thing about McNatty is that he really doesn't throw hard enough for Mo Vaughn not to be able to get the head of the bat out and pull the baseball. Oh, out in front of that off-speed pitch there from McNatty. Mo not very happy with himself.
0-2 the count. Tim Salmon to Garrett Anderson is scheduled after Vaughn. Pretty good looking pitch there, but called outside, and it's 1 ball and 2 strikes.
Even though the Angels down 6 runs right now, it's got to be a relief for that ball club just to have Tim Hudson come out of the ball game. They knew they weren't going anywhere against him. Hopefully now they can put something up on the board and get close.
Hudson struggled a lot in the first inning and then to a lesser extent in the 3rd inning, but after that was brilliant. And if he wins, it would run his winning streak to 9 in a row. Hasn't lost since April, and a 9-game winning streak would be the longest in the major leagues this season. Erstad got him for a couple of hits. Palmeiro a couple of hits. Mo Vaughn had the early double. Tim Salmon with an RBI single. But Hudson just whitewashed that bottom 5 in the lineup. They wind up 0 for 15 on the night against Tim Hudson.
Just a couple of jams, really. In the 1st inning, he was able to get out of it, only allowed 1 run. In the 3rd inning, he walked Erstad. 1st and 3rd, nobody out. Mo Vaughn up. Hudson able to get the strikeout. I think that was a real turning point as far as Anaheim hoping to get back into this ball game. After he struck out Mo Vaughn, Tim Salmon with a base hit, but he came back, struck out Anderson, and then finished striking out the side by getting Troy Glaus.
The Angels can strike quickly. 5 times this season they've hit 3 home runs in a single inning, including Friday night, first game of this series. The great pitch to Jam Vaughn. Once the shortstop Tejada, where a second baseman would normally be. 1 down as we go back to Brian Kenny.
Dan, let's check in once again with the Mariners and Rangers. Rangers trying to get back into this one, down 8-3, 2 outs. Dave Martinez with a rip here. He's going to drive it around, bouncing off the wall, but with 2 outs, he's going to second. Jay Buhner. End of inning. Right now, it's 8-4. They're in the top of the 9th. Dan?
Well, great to be able to see Jay Buhner physically able to go out and play the outfield, do the kind of things that he wants to do to become a complete player once again.
That's the Jay Buhner we remember right there, that strong throwing arm before he had the Tommy John surgery.
Tim Salmon is the batter with a 1 out here in the bottom of the 8th inning.
I think that's really the big difference between these 2 ball clubs and that Seattle team. That Seattle team just a terrific defensive ball club. And for these 2 teams to compete with them all year long, I think they're going to have to catch the ball a little bit more consistently.
Now it's starting to thin out here in the bottom of the 8th inning. The Angels have drawn pretty well in this series. One hopper off the glove of Tejada. That'll be a base hit for Tim Salmon.
I think we're seeing the Miguel Tejada of old with all the offense for Oakland tonight. He not being a part of that. He didn't really react to this soft line drive off the bat of Tim Salmon. The ball's not hit hard. He needs to come in to catch this ball in the air. Look at him go back on it. He could not have tried to make that play on a worse hop than the one he created because of the angle that he went at that baseball. He comes in a little bit. He could catch it in the air. It's easily the 2nd out of the inning, but I think right now he might be having some mixed emotions as far as playing defense and a lack of offense for him tonight.
Garrett Anderson comes up and takes low ball 1. Anderson tonight is 0 for 3. Picked up an RBI and a fielder's choice back in the 1st. His 58th RBI of the season. He's already hit more home runs this season than he's ever hit in a full season. 22 this year, and had hit 21 last year. But his batting average has dropped quite a bit as the power has gone up. Following us tonight here on ESPN2, Reese Davis will bring you RPM tonight. I'll look in at the Grand Prix of Cleveland and also the Pepsi 400. 3 years ago, Garrett Anderson was hitting over 300, but without much power. And his critics said, well, he's an outfielder, maybe a corner outfielder. Where's the pop? Now, the pop is there, but the average is down. And which Garrett Anderson would you rather have?
Well, I'd rather have the guy that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. They had a tough decision to make with Jim Edmonds and Garrett Anderson. Which one are you going to keep? Edmonds was obviously going to be a lot more expensive to keep around. But I think the telling number was the fact that the last 4 years, Garrett Anderson has played in over 150 games each year.
Ball 4. First and second with 1 out. Back to Brian Kenny again.
Well, let's send you right back to the Mariners and the Rangers, and Jay Buhner once again, right after making that throw, he got up, and how many times have you seen it? 2 men on Buhner, buries it, 3-run shot, and now it's a more comfortable 11-4 lead in the 9th inning.
And Brian, a little less comfortable for Art Howe here in Anaheim. A pitching change on the way. The right-hander Jeff Tam is coming in, with the A's leading 8-2, 2 on, 1 out. Bottom of the 8th. We'll be back to Anaheim right after this. Back in Anaheim, the A's still lead 8-2, but the Angels are making things a little bit more nerve-wracking for Art Howe. They've got runners at first and second with 1 out. The left-hander's out. The right-hander, Jeff Tam, has come into the game.
Sinker slider type guy, been real reliable for Art Howe this year in that role. A guy that throws strikes. Art Howe hoping that one of those sinkers or sliders will result into a ground ball at one of his infielders, and this inning can end with a double play.
Magnanti, Rick Peterson looking on from the Oakland dugout. The guy who needs a base hit, Troy Glaus. 0 for 3 tonight and 1 for his last 21. He's got a chance to make a real difference here. Tam got it up, but he got it by him. With 1 out in the inning, Tim Salmon picked up an infield hit off the glove of Miguel Tejada. Then McNanty walked to Garrett Anderson. First and second, 1 out. Tam threw a shutout inning last night. 0-2. He's a guy who some of his teammates have said, you know what, he's not a starter, he's not a closer, but if we had to say, this guy could be going to the All-Star game. I mean, you don't see setup guys, middle relievers go very often. Jeff Zimmerman went last year from Texas. But it's a rarity. And he got him. 3 pitches and gone for Glaus.
Had to be completely guessing on this at bat. Late on the first fastball that was up and out of the strike zone, as you mentioned, Dan, and then he takes the next 2, which are in the strike zone. Pitches that he could have done some of that damage that the Anaheim Angels offense needed.
Two down in the inning, and now Tam will face Benji Molina. After homering in each of the first 2 games of this series, Molina's 0 for 3 here tonight. Great play at second, and look at the throw to get Molina. What an outstanding play by Randy Velarde, the Oakland second baseman, as the Angels are denied, and the 8th inning comes to a close. Welcome back to Sunday Night of Baseball here on ESPN2, presented by Gum Out. We have seen some big hitting early from the A's, saw a great performance from Tim Hudson, and now we see some outstanding defense as well.
Well, a lesson for all the young infielders out there right now. Randy Velarde here knows who's at home plate. It's a slow-running catcher. When he caught that ball, he knew who was at home plate. He did not know where the runner at first base was. Sure, it's a shorter throw to go to second base for the force out, but with his back to the runner, he didn't know where Garrett Anderson was. He knew who was at home plate, he knew what he had to do, and he got it done.
8-2 Oakland in 9th inning here in Anaheim. Ben Grieve leads it off with Derek Turnbow out there for his 2nd inning of work for the Angels. Grieve's had a good night. Singled in a run in the 1st, doubled in the 4th, He's also struck out and lined sharply into a double play. That double play might be the hardest hit ball of the night for him. He smoked that ball out to the shortstop. Down low, 2-1.
When he lined into that double play, it was top of the 6th inning, the only inning that the Oakland A's offense has done anything since that 7-run in the 1st.
It appears as if it'll be enough for them tonight after scoring only 6 runs in their last 4 games, all losses. The A's have scored 8 times here tonight. And after getting 2 great pitching performances in the first 2 games of this series, the Angels did not get one here tonight, with Tim Belcher going just a third of an inning, the shortest start of his 15-year Major League career.
I'm sure it's a concern for Tim Belcher. He knows that he let the ball club down. You know, we've had 4 relievers come into the ball game already, and that's just not the Tim Belcher that we have known. You have to wonder sometimes, though. I mean, Belcher's 38 years of age, and you know, the end, you know, eventually comes for everybody. And I think back on my career, the last year, I got knocked out in the 1st inning twice. I mean, that never happened in my career. And yet, you start, you know, having to take a good long look at the writing on the wall.
Swing and a miss by Green. And in that point of your career, did people in the organization come to you and say, listen, you want to think about this, or did you take it upon yourself?
I think really the biggest thing was during the 5th inning, when normally they would come out and they would drag the infield. The last year of my career, they came out, they were dragging the warning track in the outfield. Things were so bad. But no, you just start seeing things like that. You're not able to sneak anything by anybody, and the numbers aren't good, and it also becomes very frustrating for yourself. Also, like with Tim Belcher right now, the injuries just seem to keep coming, and there's just nothing you can do about it.
Olmedo Saenz is the batter. When you look around baseball, there are a lot of good pitchers coming off surgeries who are struggling this season. Kerry Wood obviously coming back from very severe arm surgery. Scott Erickson coming off elbow surgery in the fall. Chris Carpenter had elbow surgery in the wintertime, and none of those 3 guys back to where they want to be. And how much of a factor that surgery is for each of them, only they can say right now.
Well, they say it normally is going to take you a year and a half, sometimes 2 years to regain not only the strength in that arm, the confidence to throw through that injury, and also the release points, the locations. For anybody, when they take a year off, it's going to be difficult to come back and do something, particularly you're talking about at the major league level.
0-2 to Saenz, and he'll pop it out of play.
One thing about these Anaheim Angels tonight, though, you got to respect, they have continued to battle. They constantly get people on base. Erstad battling for everything that he got tonight. Palmeiro trying to bunt for a single. Well, that's something right there that manager, Mike Scioscia, that we're looking at, will be proud of. You're not going to win every game. I mean, the best team in baseball ever. They lose 1 out of every 3, but you can play hard every game.
Now the strikeout for Turnbow as Saenz goes down, 2 down. Well, the Angels were trying to get 5 games above 500 for the first time all season. They will need a remarkable bottom of the 9th to do that. Seattle has defeated Texas by a score of 11-4 tonight in Arlington, so the Mariners for the moment have moved 2 full games ahead of Oakland in the American League West. The A's poised, though, to send it back to a game and a half. The Angels, meanwhile, as a team, have not been more than 4 games over 500 or more than 2 games under 500 the entire season. They haven't had anything longer than a 3-game winning streak. They haven't had anything longer than a 3-game losing streak.
Well, they really haven't had that #1 starter, as we saw tonight with Oakland, and Tim Hudson go out there and lead the way. One guy that they think can be that guy is Ramon Ortiz. Played at the big league level some last year, a little bit this year, currently rehabbing down in AAA. Had a slight tear of the rotator cuff that they thought he could pitch through, and he is. But his location, his command was off. A lot of base on balls. Mike Scioscia told me that his last 2 outings in AAA, he's thrown 7 innings in both of them and only walked 3 guys total. So he may be getting back to the big league level soon.
3-2 the count on to Matt Stairs. Derek Turnbow is throwing well and throwing hard here tonight. He struck out of even signs to begin the inning, and that was a 94-mile-an-hour fastball that he got by Stairs. 193, but about 2 feet high, and Stairs will draw the walk. Over on ESPN, we're going to send you to Sports Center with the conclusion of the Dodger-Giant game as you look in on the final game of the series between the Mets and Braves at Shea. Sunday night conversation with outstanding second baseman Jeff Kent, and Sammy Sosa makes a trade demand of sorts to the Chicago Cubs. They're in the 9th inning right now in San Francisco. Dodgers and Giants tied at 5. Miguel Tejada, the batter, he's 0 for 4. Is there a market for Sammy Sosa right now? Is there somebody who the Cubs can trade him to?
I don't think there's a team in baseball that wouldn't want Sammy. Not only what he does on the field, what he does in the community, the type of impact he would have at the gate, the people that he would draw. But what's the price going to be? You know, this is the time of the year we've seen a lot of organizations go out to get that one guy to help them get to the playoffs, and you know, have to mortgage the future to do that with a lot of their minor league prospects.
Outside again, 2-0.
I think about the Houston Astros a couple of years ago when they went out and got Randy Johnson. Well, what they had to give up to get him: Freddie Garcia, John Halama, 2 outstanding young pitchers, and also Carlos Guillen, who may be the heir apparent to that shortstop position for Seattle.
And they only had Johnson for a couple of months. Poked down the right field line, heading toward the corner. With foul, it doesn't reach the pole. But then there are GMs who will say, and rightfully so, depending on what team you're with, you only get a chance to contend every now and again. You've got to go for it when you get the chance.
That opportunity to win it all, and you just can't wait on it. If it seems to be there, you try to make the right move. Bringing Randy Johnson over at that time solidified that Houston was going to be into the playoffs. And he did exactly what he was expected to do. The problem was they couldn't re-sign him.
2-1 the count on Tejada with Stairs at first and 2 down. Down and away, ball 3. It figures to be a busy July on the trade front, but maybe a few more teams have to fall out of contention first before everything gets rolling. So many teams feel they're in it. There aren't that many teams looking to trade players. Here's a blast to left center field, and absolutely no doubt about this one off the bat of Tejada as the A's expand their lead to 10-2.
Well, as Art House says, he's just a kid, just 24 years of age. Miguel Tejada, last year in 158 games, 21 homers, 84 RBIs. That was a record for an Oakland A shortstop. One swing of the bat right there. He picks up a couple of more RBIs on the year. 59. I would imagine that 84 mark that he established last year will go down at the end of this year.
Strike taken by Eric Chavez. The A's start the night with a bang, and looks like they will end the night with a bang as well. Tejada's 2-run shot here in the 9th inning, making it 10-2. Last in a batting average, but right at the top in a run scored because of the walks they take and the homers they hit. That'll be all for the A's in the 9th. Turnbow strikes out 3, but he gives up a 2-run homer to Tejada. And on to the bottom of the 9th with the A's up by 8. Brass tacks for the Angels, trailing 10-2 tonight to Oakland, as the A's are on their way to salvaging the final game of the series and remaining within a game and a half of Seattle for first place in the American League West. Terrence Long has come off the bench to get an inning in center field tonight, pushing Ryan Christensen over to left. What a night for Christensen, with a single, a double, and a homer. So Ben Grieve gets a bit of an early shower here tonight. And Adam Kennedy looks at a strike from Jeff Tam. Kennedy has struck out, grounded out, and flied out tonight. Now he rips a base hit into right field. Christensen got him started early, homering on the second pitch. The A's had lost their last 4, scoring a total of 6 runs. They bettered that in the first inning tonight.
You know, sometimes a team playing as well as they did during the month of June starts taking things for granted. They get out of what they were doing that made them so successful, and a guy like Art Howe, more than happy to remind them, as he did in the meeting last night. They've come out, they've played hard. People diving, great defense. Your first baseman diving into first base to leg out a base hit.
You like to see the big guys go all out, don't you?
Yeah, and you know, you always like to have that meeting right before your #1 starter takes the hill, because it always seems to help make a manager look good, and that's what he had going for him tonight was Tim Hudson. The team had lost 4 in a row. A #1 guy is supposed to go out there and end that losing streak, and the #1 guy in Oakland got it done.
0-2 to count on Justin Bachman, who came on an inning ago at short for Benji Gill. Base hit for Kennedy. He moves to second on defensive indifference here in the 9th inning. Bachman just called up from AAA 10 days ago when Kevin Stocker went on the DL. Down ball to the right side. Velarde, 1 down. And third on the play comes Kennedy. After us tonight, stay with us. Maurice Davis has RPM tonight. Coming up next here on ESPN2. SportsCenter comes your way over on ESPN at the conclusion of the Dodger-Giant game. And don't forget, July 4th, ESPN and ESPN2 will be televising a total of 12 games. 6 on each network. There's Wednesday night of baseball as well, and a week from tonight, it's the Yankees and the Mets. Pretty good time of the year for baseball.
Well, that's the only sport going on right now, is the majors.
And if there's a team you like, chances are pretty good you'll be able to see them in the next few days somewhere on either ESPN or ESPN2. To the plate comes Kennedy on the wild pitch. 10-3.
Breaking ball right here, way off the mark. Mendez trying to just scoop it. There was no way he could get his body shifted over in time. And because of the indifference, getting him to second base, the ground ball advancing him to third, he's able to score.
What a stoppage short, and the throw's on the money. What an incredible play by Tejada to make up for that play an inning ago where he didn't give it the A effort.
Well, what's the one thing that turned him around? I mean, he didn't change gloves, but he hit a home run at the top of the 9th. I mean, you're always a little bit more excited about going out and playing defense. What a play right here. Aaron Erstad, another hard hit ball. Tejada coming up with it, knows he's got to get rid of it in a hurry. We saw the Erstad line. He gets down that line from time to time, 3.23. Tejada knows that when you're off balance or you got to hurry to throw, if you think down, your first baseman can help you. You airmail it over his head, there's nothing he can do.
Spezio comes up as a pinch hitter for Orlando Palmeiro. Spezio, a former member of the Athletics. There's a strike, 2-1.
It's also a lot easier to play defense for a guy like Tam. Comes in, throws strikes, don't let the ball get put in play, not a big strikeout guy. You expect the ball to be hit at you when you've got a guy like this that works quick.
Tejada and Velarde each with an impressive defensive play here tonight. And each contributing offensively as well. Tejada with a 2-run home run late. Velarde with a couple of base hits early. Add in Christensen's 3-hit night. Ben Grieve with a couple of hits. Jason Giambi with a couple of hits. They share the headlines tonight. Down low, 3-2. Center field. The bat goes long, and that'll do it. The Oakland A's score early and score often with 7 in the first, and they win by 7, beating the Angels by a final of 10-3. Hudson is now 10-2. He's won 9 in a row. Next week on ESPN, John Miller and Joe Morgan will be in New York for the Yankees and the Mets. Sunday night at 8 Eastern on ESPN. Coming up next here on ESPN2, it's RPM Tonight. For Rick Sutcliffe and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Dan Shulman. Thanks for watching. Good night from Anaheim.
This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Part of the Go Network, go.com.